News Weekly. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Batman News Weekly. This is episode 146 in year 3, and this was going to be a podcast that we had nothing to talk about, but apparently DC dropped a bunch of news today, and we're going to dive into that right now with the only thing that I know about, which is the Super Sons trailer that was dropped this morning. I checked this out. I thought it looked pretty interesting. What are your thoughts on this, Clay?
I enjoy the concept of this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the voice actors for Superman and Batman.
Okay. I can't
But
say I really paid attention.
hopefully, because it's a Super Sons movie, I'm only going to be paying attention to John and Damian.
Yeah, what did you think of Damien's voice actor, though?
It seemed a little bit more grown up than I would have expected.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Well, and I think that's more so because everything else that we've seen in animation has been very childlike, especially the most recent being Harley Quinn season 2 and him having a very childish voice. But apparently, I didn't even know this was a thing until today, but apparently this has already been in talks. A lot of people knew about this, and people were worried about the CGI comments that the creators made when they said, "Oh, we're going to go the CGI route for animation." How do you feel about the animation style?
I mean, I, I I've never been a fan of CGI animation, to be honest. Like, unless you're going Pixar,
Yeah.
and maybe even like Tangled and stuff like that. Like, those are fine. You can tell those are big budget. But like when it's for TV and stuff, I've never really liked that. Like when I was growing up as a kid, I thought it looked cool because like that's how like Reboot was, but like Reboot was bad.
I was just about to make the comment.
Yeah.
This is like a next level reboot, but
Yeah.
honestly, I think the whole reason behind this is the Marvel's What If series on Disney
Mm-hmm.
Plus was very popular and it had this animation. This one is not so crisp. This one is a little bit more edgier, not so
Yeah.
clean as that was. But I think that this has like just a little bit more of the like, oh, you know, we can do this and kind of smooth it out, but it doesn't take so long so we can push out content.
Yeah.
I hope that this doesn't mean that like the old wave of movies for animation is already done and that this is going to be the new wave of animation.
That would suck.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's because I like Harley Quinn's animation. Harley Quinn's animation is awesome.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I understand that this is definitely a cost saving thing because I think it is cheaper to do this. You probably don't have to. I mean, I'm pretty sure you still pay animators, but you could probably pay somebody to draw it all, and then the other people just animate the movements and stuff. I'm not too sure the exact process, but it's not super jarring to the point where I wouldn't want to watch it, but I'm not a fan of it. I just wish DC would just shill out the money for just like one Japanese studio to make one of their animations. Like, I
Yes.
would love to see it. And I know they probably, well, see, this is where I'm kind of concerned too, right? Because like everybody says it takes a lot of money to make the Japanese style, but you also hear that they pay them shit and stuff. So you would think as an American company, they'd be like, oh, they pay them shit? Maybe we should go over there and get some work done. You know what I mean? Because we know that's how America is. They want to
Yeah.
get the lowest cost for whatever they can. So I'm surprised they haven't done that. So I'm just very curious on like why they haven't done it. Like Marvel did it and people were hyped about that. Granted, I haven't heard anything about that after it came out though. So
Oh, the Visions.
yeah.
Well, they're doing a season 2.
Okay.
So it is continuing. I absolutely loved it. And I think that if you were to watch, I think there's maybe one or two that you wouldn't be a fan of,
Mm-hmm.
but majority of them are actually pretty fucking dope. And I
Nice.
believe 2 of them were nominated for Emmys, Oscars.
Oh, nice.
One of the 2.
Probably
Yeah.
Emmys if
Yeah.
it's TV related.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty insane. But I would love to see them do something like that because I can only imagine how like Batman fighting in a Dragon Ball Z style animation for like Super
Fuck,
would be
dude.
insane. Like the way they
Oh,
do the detail punches and stuff would be
yes.
great. So yeah, I wish we could see that because I think that would be next level. But it is what it is. But yeah, that's a Super Sun trailer. If you guys want to watch that, I believe that just is going to come out on what HBO Max, or it's going to be digital release.
This will most likely be a physical digital release, and then after a couple days or a couple weeks, it'll be pushed to HBO Max as well.
Nice, nice. Now, moving on, speaking of Harley Quinn, as we just mentioned, you said something along the lines of Harley Quinn season 3 has dropped episode 1 or something like that?
No, so
No? Okay.
Harley Quinn, the Twitter account has said, in case you haven't been living under a damn rock, my show is the shit. Stream the first episode for free now on youtube.com/HBO Max. You're welcome. So the very first episode of the very first season is
Oh,
able to be streamed via YouTube to get people interested into the show. So that
nice.
way you can go check out HBO Max, which, by the way, if people didn't know, HBO Max does have a second tier with ads now. So
Yeah,
if you can't dish out the $15 for the full non-ad streaming service, you can always get the second tier that is a little bit cheaper. I don't know the exact price range for that, but you can uh, get that and finish the rest of the seasons.
yeah. Yeah, there's surprisingly some people that don't care about that. I can't do it, man. Ads are just so bad. Then the problem is it's the same ads over
Yeah,
and
that's
over
that's
and
the big thing
over.
with me. It's like, why don't you companies like you should want revenue.
Yeah,
And so, like, you should be getting revenue from everybody so you can get more ads.
yeah,
And not more ads as in like, hey, this is a 45-minute show. We need to have 17 different ads. No, you have the ad spots, but just put a different ad on each ad spot
yeah,
instead of
yeah,
having the exact same Kia ad. I'm not going to go buy a Kia. I'm sorry. It's
yeah.
not my thing.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen those mouses too much. Just like, no, thank you. All right, so there's that for Harley Quinn. Again, the season premiere for season 3 is July 28th. If you guys want to watch that, I'm super excited to check that out. We will be reviewing it on the podcast, is what we were doing when the original seasons came out, but it felt like so long ago that we were
Yeah.
doing that. So we will be talking about that again when it happens. Now, these next two things we're going to talk about, I'm pretty excited because I know nothing about these. So Clay's going to take over the podcast right here. There's apparently a Batgirl rumor stuff and then DCEU rumor stuff. So what is all this, Clay?
Yes. So Batgirl was screened just the other day, and it says Batgirl had a screening and had a great response. I will have more on the great response later.
All right.
But there's a few things that we've learned from this screening. One, Keaton's Batman is a badass. Two,
Ooh,
he and Batgirl have a no kill rule.
nice.
Three, Black Canary is not in it. However, her poster is clearly seen in the film.
Hmm.
4, Nightwing is not in the movie.
Oh,
And 5, Michelle Pfeiffer is Catwoman in this universe.
yeah. Fuck yeah.
So, a lot to unpack there, but that brings us to a connecting tweet to this information. People were saying no kill rule. Keaton killed so many people, blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, more information states this is a new universe formed after the events of Flash. Michael Keaton's Batman is the new DCEU Batman who will be entirely new. It will be a new version of Michael Keaton's Batman.
Yeah, as I assumed.
Yeah.
So, yeah, chalk one up for juice. So I mean, it was just the most logical thing, right? Like comics retcon shit all the time.
Yeah.
Why can't you do it in movies?
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of Marvel people out there that are like, well, Marvel never does that. Your shit has been retconned. All right. You haven't been paying attention. A lot of people don't want to admit it, but that fucking what was that stupid show Inhumans? That was part of your universe, people. And everybody's like, no, that wasn't a part of it. Yeah, so was Agents of Shield and all that other bullshit. And even as much as Feige wouldn't want it, the Daredevil and stuff and all that. And if I'm not mistaken, they're retconning that, right?
Yes and no. So it is like a soft reboot,
Mhm.
whereas they keep all the same characters.
It's like the Suicide Squad.
Yeah, you keep all the same characters, but they act as though nothing really existed, but may take one or two things throughout
Yeah.
the time that they make their own show or movie or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
Which is how you have to treat comics. It has to be Doctor Who style, but you just pick and choose what's the most important shit.
yeah,
Because there's no way you could keep 80 years of continuity like straight. Doctor Who can't even do it. So, and they're hitting
yeah.
their 60 years pretty soon. So, pretty crazy. So, good things for Batgirl. So, you said there was a reference to the great part. Did you already say
Yes.
that?
No. So, BSL, Big Screen Leaks, on Twitter stated anyone who said Batgirl got overwhelmingly positive reaction is lying. I've been
Ooh.
told by quite a few people that the audience left with mixed reactions, and I've talked to people who liked it and people who didn't. But don't worry, this is exactly what test screenings are for. Now, I have a question in regards to this towards you.
Hmm.
Do you think that this has a mixed reaction because nobody knows what the hell is going on in the Flash?
Yes and no. So I would say yeah, like if this movie relies heavily on the Flash to make sense, then I can see why it's mixed reactions because even I would be like, well, that doesn't make sense, right? Like I always call that out. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. How are we supposed to understand this? Um and I think that was one of my biggest things with Endgame, right? Like when I was always talking about how I thought Thanos' motivation was stupid because they never explained that the Infinity Stones or the Infinity Gauntlet had limits, right? Because apparently in the comic books, he can't just make unlimited resources, but he can take shit away. You know what I mean? Like apparently that's specified in the comic book. They never did that in the MCU. So my dumbass is like, if he's trying to, why would you just delete half when you can make everything? Because his whole motivation was like people died. Like, well, then just make unlimited amount of food. You could bend reality. So I hate when things don't make sense a lot of the time. But when it comes to this, I would love to know who watched it. You know what I mean? I know a lot of people will go out of their way and say like, "Oh no, the people are unbiased." There are comic book fans that just don't like female-led movies. You know,
Yes.
and some of those mixed reactions will be like, eh. There are people that will go watch a Marvel movie and say it sucked because they only like DC. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But so I'm curious on where these sources are, who this person talked to. You know what I mean? Because I will definitely read somebody's like, just their opinions across the board to be like, do I really want to trust this person's opinion on something? You know what I mean?
Well,
So
and also in regards to like people probably not understanding because of the Flash, I think it would be a huge misstep to not get at least some people who saw the screening of the Flash to
yeah,
watch the screening of Batgirl.
yeah,
Because you
yeah.
also have to remember this may be, and I understand Snyderverse was connected. A lot of people didn't see it that way. A lot of
Hmm.
people wanted it to be a little bit more connected and all that. If this is the start of WB's MCU style storytelling,
Yeah.
people who haven't seen The Flash that jump into Batgirl, literally their second movie into this type of storytelling, will have a very hard time understanding it.
Yeah. Yeah, I really hope they're not releasing this before Flash, which would be crazy.
Yeah.
But and here's the thing too, people need to remember about test screenings. Like that person said, this is what test screenings are for. If they want to do some reshoots, they will do reshoots. But as we knew from the Batman test screenings, they don't include everything all the time.
True.
So it's possible that there is a Black Canary scene. It is possible that there might be a Nightwing cameo. We don't really know. That might be stuff that they're withholding. You know what I mean? Or maybe we hear that there's another test screening and they're like, "Oh yeah, this is actually in the movie." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we don't know. If they are pushing this movie back, is what we're assuming. If it is supposed to be connected to the Flash, then they have ample time to fucking reshoot scenes or add scenes if they wanted to.
Yeah.
So It looks cool, from the the leaks and stuff that we've seen, so I'm excited to see it. I'm curious on how much of a badass Keaton's Batman is supposed to be, because his suit does look kind of floppy and weird. So I'm curious on what that's gonna do, and if they are gonna make him the Batman of the DCEU going forward. Because what Keaton's in is what 60s,
Yeah.
maybe late 50s, something like that. So yeah, I'm curious on how that's gonna go. But he's a great actor, so I'm not worried about his acting chops. Um, but we'll go from there. So what are these DCEU rumors that you're talking about?
So take these with a grain of salt. These have been passed around for at least a week or two, but I'm
Coming
just
from
gonna
any reliable source?
um some coming from more reliable than others, but
Okay.
these people have been wrong before.
Mm,
So,
got you.
so the first one, Bradley Cooper is expected to play a role in the second Joker film alongside Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga.
Alright.
This I could see because Bradley Cooper was a producer of the first Joker
Yeah.
and, wanted to get a little bit more of the pie, just give him an acting role?
Well, he's also worked with Lady Gaga.
That is also true. I
Yeah.
completely forgot. Star
Yeah,
is
they'll
Born.
probably
Yeah.
sing together again. The same fucking thing that won them an Oscar. They're like, "Yeah, let's just do it again." Interesting. I don't know who he would be. The Riddler, probably. Something
Oh
like that.
god. I
Yeah.
I mean,
What if he
he's
just comes out as Rocket and he's singing, "La, la, la,
he well, I
la,
was gonna say he's done
la."
voice work. What if Bradley Cooper is Scarface?
That'd be cool. We're not gonna get Scarface is gonna show up on an HBO Max show before he ever shows up on the big screen.
Yes, I do
Yeah,
believe that. Okay,
Penguin would be the perfect place. But
second bullet point, Margot Robbie is co-developing with James Gunn a Lucky Chap production, a new Harley Quinn solo movie, which is described as a lesbian road trip between Harley and Poison Ivy in the vein of Thelma and Louise.
damn,
This
she's
one,
been so hung up on that lesbian shit for so long.
I think this one may be a little bit harder to believe only because we haven't really been introduced to Poison Ivy at all on the DCEU. Not
Yeah,
saying that this can't be the introduction to her character, but jumping right in to like,
yeah,
hey, we're in a relationship is going to throw a lot of people off as far as the character development of those two and the relationship that they have,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. I think. I mean, I like that Gunn is on board because I think Gunn would be somebody that can introduce a character like that. Because the way you do that is you mention Joker and you mention like Harley Quinn's just got to be like, well, what one people don't know is that I had a little thing between Joker or whatever, some bullshit like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she mentions Ivy, or she can say that she's always had an eye for Ivy through their run-ins or whatever. And you just do some flashbacks of like maybe her getting saved from the Joker or whatever. Like you can kind of wiggle around that. I don't think it's the best way to tell a story personally. Um, but at the same time, could Ivy be introduced during one of Gunn's series? Could she be in Peacemaker 2? Could she be in the rumored Amanda Waller series?
Yeah.
That would be pretty interesting because it would be interesting if Waller hired Ivy to go after Quinn, if that was an episode and then they could kind of be like, oh, because I mean, Harley was a part of that team, and if the rumor is that she's trying to kill everybody from Task Force S, that would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. She, I'm weary of Margot as like part of the creative process. I think she's a great Harley Quinn, but I don't know if she. I would like to know how much of involvement she had on Birds of Prey. Because I know she talked very fondly of it, like, "Oh yeah, it's going to be more, with the costumes and all that kind of jazz." And we kind of know where that went. It wasn't great. And the way they introduced some of the characters and told the stories of those characters, I don't even remember if we ever got Cassandra's name in that movie. Um, you know, I don't even remember. So
No.
we can just kind of forget that she ever existed, which is the best thing for that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I don't know. I'm weary about her involvement. Thelma and Louise sounds kind of cool. I'd be down with it, but that story is being kicked into the dirt. Like it's going to happen in the new season of Harley Quinn. It's
Yeah,
in the comic books right now,
yeah,
and I'm pretty sure they've done it. I mean, they just did it in Catwoman as well, kind of.
yeah.
So it's just like, bruh. So yeah, that's been kind of done. I think you introduce. I mean, they might be doing that story to introduce Ivy, so then you can also, if they have a cameo from a Catwoman in there, because that's what they did in the comic book, that'd be a great way to introduce the DCEU Catwoman, and then you do a Birds of Prey versus
But
Gotham City
if
Sirens.
this is playing along with the new DCEU, that's Michelle Pfeiffer.
Ooh, yeah, that's true. Hmm. Yeah, that's weird. That might suck. See, man, this is another reason to hate Matt Reeves. Fuck Matt Reeves and his The Batman, dude. I knew they were gonna probably do something very drastic so that people wouldn't be like, oh no, that's an old version. That's an old version.
Well,
Fucking The Batman, dude.
speaking of the Batman, one of the other rumors is Matt Reeves wants Benny Safdie. I only know him recently from uh, small spoilers. Uh, he played a role in Obi-Wan Kenobi, the Disney
Okay.
Plus series. Um, he wants Benny Safdie to play Harvey Dent in the Batman sequel.
Hmm.
But
Ugh.
if this is the case, this is exactly what I predicted. We're just going to get the same,
Mm-hmm.
the one word you don't like on the podcast, take on Batman villains.
Yeah. So speaking of that, because we talked about it, only one person in the Discord tried to provide
Oh, that's
a
right. That's right.
a thing, and they said hyper realistic was their thing. Now, I think hyper realistic has probably been used incorrectly when I hear it, because every time I've heard, I might be getting it confused with hyper violent, because hyper violent is like The Boys, the scene from The Kingsman, and maybe
Yeah.
even Kick Ass. Like that's hyper violent type of stuff. Maybe that's what I'm getting confused with. But hyper realistic is you are making something look as real as possible. It's like taking art and making it real. And I was just like, okay, if we think about it in that way, that is, you are trying to make a comic book as real as possible.
Yeah.
And so it's hyper realistic. I could see that being a better thing than Grounded.
Yeah.
And like, again, but Grounded is still connected to realistic, in my opinion. Um, but yeah, I don't know the best way. I don't know. I think comic booky is just the best way to say like you want a comic book style movie, and hyper realistic is probably, because I don't think people use grounded the correct way. I think they use it as a way to tell a down to earth story, and
Mhm.
that is just that, but it's so tied to realistic nowadays that the meaning of grounded is just bad.
Yeah.
Like, you have to say down to earth story. That's what you have to say. Um, so yeah, I don't know. There's still that. But is that all the rumors that we got?
No, one more. So the last
Also, fuck
rumor.
Two Face if that's gonna be the second villain. Like, go fuck yourself, Matt Reeves. Be different, bro.
For real. No,
You stole Nolan stuff,
it's
and now
even
you're
worse.
stealing all these
It's
characters.
even worse. It's even worse because what was the second movie of Nolan?
Two
It
Face,
was Two
Dark
Face
Knight.
and Joker. And the
Yeah,
rumor is Joker is going to be only a player in the second movie, not the main villain.
yeah.
So it's gonna be the exact same story. Uh
So bad.
the last rumor is a Nightwing movie is in active development with Chris McKay still attached to direct it.
What?
The Court of Owls will be the main villain, and Michael Keaton is
Ugh.
expected to return as Bruce Wayne.
Hmm. God, they're going hard in the paint with that, huh?
Yeah.
What do you do if something happens to Keaton? He's old, man. The average age for a male is in his 60s.
They're gonna make him sign a contract that they can use his likeness and just CGI the
Probably.
fuck out of him.
Probably. I've been watching a bunch of Terminator recently. I don't know why. T2 is still such a good movie, man.
It is.
T2 it holds up, and
Have
they
you seen the new
remastered
one?
it so it looks better.
Well, wait.
What do you mean?
The new Terminator. Did we go see that?
We know we was that Dark Fate, the last one. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
I think we saw that because we were Latino pride, yeah,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it's
yeah.
all Latinos. Yeah, we saw Dark Fate. I didn't think it was for a Terminator movie. I didn't think it was that bad compared to the other ones that have come out. You know, like 3 is terrible.
No, but for
Fucking
the fact that
Genesis.
opening scene in
Oh
Dark Fate
yeah,
though.
fucking great. It's all CGI too. Like
Yes.
it's all deep fake or whatever. Yeah, they could make him forever if they wanted to. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? I was thinking, I was like, how do you make a good Terminator movie? You know, the only way I think you could make a good Terminator movie and build hype for Terminator again is by not saying it has anything to do with Terminator, and then you show at the very end of the movie the person that the villain was a Terminator. Like you
So
cannot.
you go the split route with
Yes, you
Unbreakable.
don't talk about it, and you have to make it just some other element. You can't be like Skynet and blah. You have to take out all the buzzwords from the Terminator movies, and then at the end it's just like dun 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 dun. You're just like, oh, you know,
You see
that's
fucking CGI deepfake Arnold Schwarzenegger come out of
yeah.
nowhere. What the
So
fuck?
like, but he's in every movie.
Yeah.
Like he's genuinely in every. Because I remember seeing Salvation, which fucking sucked, and that was the one with Christian Bale,
I
and everybody's
really
like,
wanted to like that movie.
dude, I one of my friends that I always used to talk movies with loves Salvation. I hate Sam Worthington. Because check this out. When I first saw Sam Worthington ever, it was Avatar, then that stupid Colossus movie, and then Terminator. 3 terrible movies in
Clash
a
of the
row, in my
Titans.
opinion.
Clash of
Clash
the
of the
Titans.
Titans. I Those were my 3 Sam Worthington movies. I was like, fuck this guy. I hate him. I don't ever want
He
to see a
was
movie with him
he
again.
was the it boy in Hollywood for like 2 years straight.
And where is he now? Nowhere. He's been doing Avatar for the last 20 years. That's how bad it
Oh
is.
shit.
Could not stand him after that. And I was just like, screw this dude. I did see, yeah, dude. So I've been going down that route. But yeah, what do you do if something happens to Keaton here? Like,
I'm telling
they're
you,
putting a lot of eggs in
they're
that basket.
I am willing to bet they are, because non-Batman related, but I'm just going to go ahead and throw this out there. There are rumors that with the reshoots of Black Adam taking place, they have shot a post-credit scene
Mhm.
with the big man in blue, but it's from the shoulders down
Hmm.
again.
Interesting. Of course.
So, uh I think, and this is what I was worried about. I think that they're going to make, eventually heavily deepfake CGI Michael Keaton, and then they're
Mhm.
gonna bring Christopher Reeves back to life as Superman.
Yeah, I don't know about that one, man. That would just be because at this point, what's the point of having new actors? You know, it's like WWE. They just brought back John Cena for his 20th anniversary. Like, bro,
Yep.
get some new stars. Like, holy fuck. They rely on The Rock. They rely on fucking. I'm tired of Roman Reigns already. Like, it's the same shit over and over. Like, people are just like, oh, let's just stick with what sells instead of trying to build something new.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I don't know, man. That does worry me. I mean, hopefully the fighting will be cool. The suit looks okay, but it's just because it's nostalgic. You know what I mean? It doesn't seem like the best thing to fight in. Um, but hopefully, maybe I think you just go down the Nightwing becoming Batman route. Like, just hire a good young actor for Nightwing. Have maybe the crisis event happen. Bruce dies, which is Michael Keaton, and you have Nightwing take over the mantle and just have him keep going. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And have a Robin and do that story there if you want to. So, yeah, I don't know. I think that would be a better way about it, but I don't know, man. That's kind of crazy to think that we're not going to get a Catwoman in the DCEU either. So no Birds of Prey, no nothing like that. Like
Again,
Michelle
you will. It
Pfeiffer,
just will be Michelle
yeah,
Pfeiffer.
that would just be ridiculous. I fucking oh my god. It just that was the only thing I wish the Snyderverse would have worked for is we probably would have got a more cohesive thing. But it's like just blow it up and start over. Like why try to fix this? You know what I mean? It's like fucking people trying to fix their relationship stuff they've broken up like 5 times. It's not gonna work. Just stop it already. Like goddamn. God. Maybe it'll work the 12th time that we do it. Anyways, is that all we got for rumors there?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So, quick news. We got Batman Unburied has been renewed for a season 2, which this is the podcast that we spoke about a few weeks back. So yeah, if you guys are enjoying Batman Unburied, that's going to be getting to season 2. As far as I know, that is the only Batman podcast to get continued, right?
Correct.
So yeah, surprisingly. So it must be really good. I have not got to listen to it. So anybody that has listened to it, let us know. I know there's some people in the Discord that have that said they've gotten through the first 2 or 3 episodes that said they really enjoy it. So that's kind of cool. So yeah, that's what we got for a lot of news. Now we got 2 topics that blew up in the Discord this week, which I thought was very interesting. I was on the minority side of this, so I kind of want to talk about this to get a broader sense of what people think. So let us know in the comment section on YouTube or in the Discord. We talked about I made a comment. Somebody brought up I think it was Raphael showed the top 100 comic series from Reddit or voted on by Reddit. And he was talking about how Tom King had the most out of all the writers in there. No Batman, surprisingly, or no Heroes in Crisis, because we know that Heroes in Crisis wasn't well liked by a lot of people. I loved Heroes in Crisis because it was like, it felt different, and I always want different in comics. So I made the comment that I was like, let's be real. No one gave a fuck about Wally before Heroes in Crisis. Now, I do want to preface this that Wally had not been seen like before that, according to Rebirth, though. Like, right? Rebirth was there. Nobody really paid attention to the Rebirth shit because there was too much Rebirth stuff. And then he died in Heroes in Crisis, right? So that comment upset a lot of people in Discord. And they're like, you're wrong. People love Wally, blah, blah, blah. And I even admitted in Discord after we got into this conversation, I was like, I think I worded it wrong. Being loved and being cared about are very different things. Because I mentioned if DC or anybody cared about Wally West, he wouldn't have just disappeared. Because that doesn't happen to other characters in comics that are cared for or loved or big. You know what I mean? And then so I also brought in maybe it's popularity. I don't think he has the popularity of other characters. Because loved is different. Like you can have an emotional connection with a character, right? But popularity and being cared for, I think, are different. But you said Wally is loved from
Yes.
people.
Now, I do agree that loved and care about are two different things. But I do think there are, how do I word this? So, in the aspects of modern comics, what we're reading in today's comic books, there's 2 Batmans, there's 2 Flashes, and there's 2 Supermans right now,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Batman is Batman. No matter who it is, unfortunately, it's going to sell.
Yeah.
Now, one may sell more than the other, but they're going to sell. With 2 Flashes, one is always going to be pushed more to the wayside than the other. That's just the
Mm-hmm.
way it is. That's how it's always been. When Wally was in the limelight, it was because Barry was dead. When Barry came back, Wally was pushed to the wayside.
Yeah.
Here, technically, Barry is being pushed to the wayside. Barry is dealing with all the stuff with Dark Crisis. He's been kind of just kidnapped from Psycho Pirate and Darkseid and all of that stuff in the events of what's going on. And in Superman's corner, you have John and, of course, Clark. Clark is
Mm-hmm.
off planet. I don't hear. Well, I will say this. I feel like John Superman and Clark Superman are almost neck and neck
Mm-hmm.
in the popularity of the stories. Now, as far as who's selling more, I think it's clearly Tom Taylor Superman. But with
Who's writing
this,
the other Superman?
uh, Philip Kennedy Johnson, I believe.
Is the
Uh,
story good?
yeah, I think it has like this weird like I'm trying to think of how to what to compare it to. Um, it's not because I mean Dark Knights of Steel is Game of Thrones. It's not Game of Thrones. It's this weird like I don't even know if anybody else in Discord is reading action comics, but like Superman was captured on Warworld. He's lost a majority of his powers, um, and he's like fighting all of Warworld
Mm-hmm.
to like free them from their capture of Mongol, because everybody
Mhm.
on Warworld is a slave.
Yeah.
He's trying to free slaves over on Warworld and trying to get back to Earth. Uh, it's an amazing story. I absolutely
Nice.
love it. Uh, but as far as Wally West, I think it's very unfortunate that they can't coexist sometimes,
Mhm.
and they coexist for different reasons. So Barry Allen is not really the family man that Wally West is.
Yeah.
So it really depends on the audience and just the quote unquote political climate. Like, hey, everybody loves family. Everybody wants all your characters to have this community and everything else.
Not in
Barry's
Batman,
never really
apparently.
had that, you know?
Yeah.
So, okay, Barry's going to push the wayside. Wally's going to be up front with his wife, with his kids, all of that. So I think they move around Wally and Barry for specific reasons,
Mhm.
but they do move around a lot,
Yeah.
out in and out of the spotlight. I mean,
Mhm. So, and then the biggest thing that was brought up by other people in the Discord, and I mentioned this too, is when you get referred to the best Flash stories, they don't have Wally in them. It's Barry. And I think Flashpoint is the biggest one. It is the most mainstream story you're ever going to get with the Flash, and that's Barry.
yes,
Because you
I
brought up Jeff Johns' acclaimed run or something like this. I have not read this run, but also it was 12 years ago. It wasn't it, or over 12 years ago?
12 years ago, maybe a little bit closer to 13, but
Yeah,
pretty
that's a
close to,
teenager.
yeah,
That's pretty insane.
yeah.
So, and that's kind of how I talk about it. I brought up this, I showed a picture that I got sent to me or I saw online or randomly. That was DC promotes Flashpoint. It was like this comic and a toy that came with it. And yeah, it was Flashpoint and stuff like that, which was pretty crazy. But yeah, I honestly, and the thing is, I think a lot of people liked Wally because yes, he was in the comic books, but I think it is fair to say that the audience that watches movies and TV shows is bigger than the audience that reads comic books. I think that's fair to say, right? Like,
Maybe I oh
because like my thing is how many if we were to steal the manga versus American numbers, right?
yeah,
It was reported as the whole comic book industry sold 15 million units, whereas
yeah,
Demon Slayer's one issue sold 100 million
150,
units,
yeah, yeah,
right? So that means that's all of comics. So if we're being friendly, DC probably has one third of that, maybe.
yeah,
If we were just being to split it, it's like one third is DC, one third is Marvel, the other half is all the rest of the indie books, right?
yeah,
Like if we're being nice. Um, so that's only 5 million people that would be reading comics. There's way more than that watching movies and TV shows. You
true,
know what I
true,
mean? So, and I think a lot of people that know Wally are probably from the original cartoons because it was Wally, not Barry, in those cartoons, right? Everybody knows the one episode where the Thanagarians come down and Batman's all like, Wally West, Clark Kent, fucking John, whatever. He says or Bruce Wayne. He says Bruce Wayne. So people know Wally from that. So I feel like a majority of Wally love could be from that, but I'm not saying that people don't read the comic books, but I feel like I've never really seen or talked to a lot of people that talk about Wally. It's just because of something else. You know what I mean? And when I read Heroes in Crisis, yeah, he had came back in Rebirth, but before he came back in Rebirth, I was starting to read comics a little before Rebirth. So when he came back, I was like, that's kind of cool. When the fuck did he disappear? And I went back and looked, and it was what, like 5 to 7 years before Rebirth?
yeah.
And like, tell me another character that is really popular that would be gone for that long. You know what I mean? They ain't doing that to Batman. They ain't doing it to Wonder Woman. They ain't doing it to Superman. They ain't doing it to Joker. Hey, we couldn't even get Joker gone for an issue. He died in the same issue and came back in the same issue. You know what I mean? And like that was my thing. So I think I worded it in a way that people took it to heart, obviously. But I still, my argument still stands. I don't think he's popular enough that people really cared. But you can't say that that story did not put him on the map, because people were like, "Oh, you killed Wally and all this stuff about Wally and what's going on with Wally." Like that made him more interesting to me. I didn't People didn't like it, but I was like, got me to get the book. I was interested in it. I wanted to know why he killed people. Now we have people in the Discord that don't like characters being changed or characters not doing stuff. We know that for a fact. But we always say, if you can put a character on the map and have people talk about him, that's more interesting
But
and
again,
better for industries.
I think you're using the phrase "on the map" wrong as well.
Okay, so if well,
Wally
did
was
he
already on the map.
he was
He
on the
was not
map.
on your map.
He wasn't on my map. Okay, fine. But are you going to also say that that didn't possibly bring in new readers? That story? We
I
know
th-
for a fact that King has brought in people that have not read comics before. That is
yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
known fact. You can't say that for every other writer. But King has brought in people that do not read comics and people that don't know. He brought in so many people for BatCat. So many people have wanted a relationship between Batman and Catwoman that he brought in a whole new audience. And the moment they killed that, those people left. They're just like, I'm done. I'm not going to buy comics anymore. And I think it's because we've read the same Flash stories over and over. We have read what's happening in the future of Batman, and we're just like, we have opinions on it. And like we're tired of repeat stories, right? You don't have 80 years of Batman and Catwoman together. It's
Yeah.
different. It's new. And I respect going on different stuff. Would you say Mr. Miracle was on the map?
Mr.
Nobody gave a
Miracle.
fuck about Mr. Miracle.
No, I think that Mr. Miracle is a niche character
Mm-hmm.
that really only shows up for people who love and adore the off teams of Justice League. So Justice League Detroit, Justice League International, those types of teams, those oddball teams,
Yeah.
those people like the oddball characters like a Mr. Miracle.
Yeah.
Or people who like more of the Odyssey stuff, more like the New Gods, the Green Lantern Corps stuff, the people who are more cosmic,
Mm-hmm.
those type of readers would like a Mr. Miracle. But I do think Mr. Miracle, the run that Tom King did, I think he did something big enough for people who aren't into the cosmic or the oddball characters to grab a hold of that book, who
Yeah.
are still in the realm of comics, but to grab that book as well.
Yeah. I would say he did the same thing with Strange Adventures. Nobody cared about what's his name. Like, and when I say that is I'm talking about the current audience. Like, because you're talking about Wally having an acclaimed series 13 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, that's a whole teenager. You know how crazy teenagers are and how much people change from being a child to a
Well,
teenager.
let's turn it back. Wally had an acclaimed run in series more than, I would probably say, 15 years ago. Like right before, because I believe it was during the time of Blackest Night, Brightest Day, um, Final Crisis,
Mm-hmm.
like all around that time, there was a book named Flash Rebirth,
Mm-hmm.
which was the resurrection of Barry Allen. Barry Allen came
Mm-hmm.
back to life. So from that point, it became a Barry Allen book. But
Mm-hmm.
everything before that, so I would say about 15 years, not 13.
Okay. And so I think that's kind of what I'm getting to, right? So I will concede the idea that Wally is more known than a Mr. Miracle or an Adam Strange,
Mm-hmm.
but I would say enough time passed where he was becoming obscure and people didn't know about him and were not caring about him. So, like, if we say that Adam Strange and like Mr. Miracle are like E tier, F tier, I would say Wally was like starting to sit at a C tier because he
Yeah.
wasn't in a lot of books. He wasn't doing anything. I mean, he was gone for a long time, and we had to have Rebirth to bring him back. He was gone for 7 years or 5 years or something like that
Yeah.
before Rebirth came out. So I would say he was in that point where I don't know, man. Like, 5 to 7 years is an easy point for people to drop off of something. Somebody to stop liking comics. Somebody to leave. I left WWE and missed all of CM Punk, which was apparently good for CM Punk. People are like, "Oh yeah, he's the greatest in the world." I'm like,
Oh
"The
yeah.
fuck is CM Punk? Like, who's that?" I missed Shawn Michaels coming back, and he was my favorite wrestler of all time.
Oh yeah.
Like, I missed that whole run. I stopped watching like kind of in high school, and I came back watching wrestling when Goldberg came back because somebody at our old job was like, had it on their phone. And they're like, oh yeah, Goldberg's coming back tonight. I'm like, what? And I started watching it again. And I've been watching since just because I'm like, oh, I miss wrestling. That was kind of cool. And so, like, I fell out, right? So anything that happens in that gap is just whatever. So you could have had somebody leave when Wally just randomly disappeared, and it's a whole new generation of people reading. So they don't
Yeah.
know or care about Wally. So I think that's kind of what I was getting about. He was gone long enough to, I think, drop down to C tier, kind of being irrelevance, kind of people not caring. Now, granted, people that grew up with him are going to care. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
My obscure characters that I love are from like the animated series. Like, I love fucking Grey Ghost. I love the Clock King. You don't fucking see them anywhere. I'm just like,
That's
dude,
true.
those are
And
dope.
I think that's what like it's hard to come to terms with like cuz even now. So I think Rebirth was literally that. It was a rebirth in the DC continuity,
Yeah,
DC Comics writing, the way they were going about everything. I think that it was very very good for the company, for DC as a
yeah,
company. As soon as Jeff Johns was like, "Hey, I'm out. I'm making more money in Hollywood." Things went to shit,
yeah,
unfortunately. Because I do think Johns was that, glue that was like trying to keep everybody, "Hey, we're streamlining this. We're going to make this story and then it's going to branch off to something else."
yeah,
He left and then it was like a fucking eggshell. It just cracked and it went everywhere. Uh then they went to, instead of Rebirth, it was DC Universe. That went nowhere. It was
yeah,
just random stories.
yeah.
And there may be new readers that jumped in on New Frontier or not new. Is it New Frontier? I can't even remember what it is
Yeah,
anymore.
I didn't even read that.
Like it's this new era of DC, but a majority of people that I have been following and talking to as
Hmm.
far as the community goes since Rebirth, we don't know what the hell is going on
Yeah, I
in
agree.
comics right now.
I don't
And
think any event since Rebirth has been as big as Rebirth.
no,
Yeah.
I
I
and
think Rebirth is something that brought in new readers.
I think Doomsday Clock was supposed to be that big one,
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
but it unfortunately just took way too long. Which, by the
Yeah.
way, was talking to a friend of mine. Uh, I think I know who. It's not Doctor Manhattan, or technically not Doctor Manhattan, that is coming back in uh, uh, Batman Flashpoint Beyond.
Really?
If you remember at the end of that story,
Uh-huh.
he had a child.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And do you remember what that child was named?
No.
Clark.
Wait, what? I gotta go back and read it.
They like
It was named after Superman.
he was named after
Yeah.
Superman to give like the Watchmen universe their own Superman.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was basically Manhattan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Interesting. That would be interesting to tie those stories together. Again, it's probably like the one of the only interesting thing that's happening in DC right now.
Yeah.
For the most part. But yeah, so there was that whole conversation. Let us know your thoughts and opinions on that. But there's another thing that I wanted to talk about. That this was only happening between me and Clay, and I wish other people would have dove into this conversation. So, and this started off as a joke and kind of spun into a thing. So Clay, I had mentioned. Oh, it literally spun off from Clay mentioning the critically acclaimed Jeff Johns series, and then I said, "What hasn't Jeff Johns done that isn't critically acclaimed?" To
And
which
I
Clay
said
responded, yeah, go for it.
Jeff Johns' indie comic that came out, I believe, starting of 2020. Uh,
Yeah, I don't know.
and I heard a lot of people getting really excited that Jeff Johns was doing an indie book. Even Drew in Discord said, "Oh, I read the first 3 issues and then I fell off of it." People,
Yeah,
the only reason why you fall off of a series is 2 reasons. One, you get swamped as far as your schedule
yeah,
and you're continuing buying books, but you still know about it. Then you don't fall off of it.
yeah,
Or two, it just isn't interesting and
yeah.
you drop off.
I would be curious to hear what Drew says because Drew has dropped off a lot of things
Yes.
from just talking to him. He dropped off of Batman, and he confuses me on when he says he drops off Batman because he says before he says he dropped off on Riddle, whatever, but like his timeline didn't match up, and I was like, and there's a conversation about it somewhere, but so yeah, he seems to drop off on stuff. So I'd be curious to see if he dropped off because it wasn't interesting or if he just got busy or whatever. Because I was reading Tynan's undetected whatever or whatever his indie was, and I thought that was good, and I read the first like 2 or 3 issues, but it was when we were still getting a whole bunch of books, but now we only get like DC. But I was reading as we were getting those books, and I was just like, oh, that's cool. But I just didn't keep getting it weekly, so I was just like, all right, whatever, and I fell off of it. But that spun into, I'm trying to find exactly what I said, but I was like, I was where did I word it at? Let's see. Okay, to be fair, let's talk about indie comics. You said, oh, and then I said, to be fair, does anyone talk about indie comics? And I put like a sticking out tongue. And Clay goes on to list Power Rangers, Black Radiant, Secret Service, Ice Cream Man, Something is Killing the Children, Walking Dead, and Invincible. To which I replied, I would not consider Power Rangers indie. And I said a bunch of other books too. Clay said it was, well, that's Image and Boom Studios. Those are indie comics. I think, and this is the greater discussion here, I don't think those brands, although they're compared to be indie because they're not Marvel and DC, I don't think they're indie anymore. I think that is held over from the 80s when comics were huge and still blowing up and stuff. That those were like, we're the independent people. We're, what's his fucking face? McFarlane. We're indie. I think my idea of indie is you're no longer indie if your name can self-publish a book. Like if you're big enough, you're no longer independent because you have the funds to make it happen. I think people that are indie are barely getting by. That's how I see it nowadays. Because it's because Image is known. Boom Studios is known. They're not
So
Marvel and
you're
DC known.
saying oh shit, what is Keanu Reeves's book? Uh he did a comic book. You said,
Yeah,
because you said, I
but
believe,
like, yeah, I forgot what it's called. It's not Berserk, but it's
but
something.
it's BKZ or something like
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But I believe you said somewhere. Oh, right here. Whenever I made the Boom Studio Image comment, you said
Hmm.
I would consider people who do Kickstarters and stuff indie. Keanu Reeves's book
Was a
was
Kickstarter.
was a Kickstarter.
I agree. So I was thinking about this after this conversation was going, and that's why I just said right now, I think if your name can carry it, I don't think it's indie anymore. So I would have to retract that statement.
Okay.
So because I just don't. Keanu Reeves can self-fund a book if he wanted to. Like, you know what I mean? He
And
didn't need to do a Kickstarter.
to be fair, I do believe that book ended up going to either Boom Studios or Image. It
Yeah,
was one or the other. But
yeah,
immediately after the Kickstarter, you basically paid for you funded the mass production
yeah,
of that book.
yeah.
Basically, if you join that Kickstarter.
Yeah. The reason why too is Image and Boom Studios have so much recognition is you're in a pipeline. You're no longer like you have the power of a studio behind you to for them to get it to a comic shop, for them to do it, right? It's not like you're a musician and you're trying to get somebody to listen to your song. You know what I mean? That would be like, "Oh yeah, we'll take your song and we'll put it on the radio." Like at that point you're like, oh shit, I got it on the radio, but the radio's helping you get more listens, right? Now
Yeah.
granted, this is an old school mentality. We have Spotify and all this shit now,
Yeah.
SoundCloud. You can get popular on TikTok and explode now.
Yeah.
That's how a lot of people apparently are getting successful. So I think that's the greater thing. I would love to hear people's thoughts and opinions on that because I just think I don't know. I feel like people are like it's just Marvel and DC. Anything outside of that is indie, and I'm just like, nah, man. Scott Snyder. Even as much as I love Tom King, his book ain't indie. Like even though he's putting it on Substack or whatever, his name's big enough to where people are like, it's Tom King. I'll buy it or I'll read it or whatever. Like it's just too big already. I would not consider him an
See,
indie
I
writer.
would have to disagree though, because he may be making that, because I literally just saw it. I was scrolling Twitter like
Hmm.
just now, and like I think issue 4 or 5 is out.
Yeah.
Issue 4, Love Everlasting, is the
Hmm.
book that he is giving to his Substack subscribers.
Yeah.
If he wasn't doing DC, if he didn't
Hmm.
have a contract with DC making that DC money, I don't think he would be making Love Everlasting.
I you're on his page right now.
I just saw somebody post about it. I'm not looking at his Substack.
Okay, I'm looking at his thing. I I might disagree because Tom King has almost 140,000 followers on his Twitter. I think he averages about just going through his posts right now, anything that has to do with Batman and stuff, it looks like he's getting a few thousand likes and stuff on it. I think his audience is big enough to support him in something if he wasn't doing DC. But I think his name is big enough to where people are like, "Oh, is that the BatCat guy?" Like, "Oh, okay, I like his stuff. I'll buy it." I think he's not like some like if I were to release a book right now, release a book, nobody's gonna fucking know who I am. I'm gonna have maybe, if I'm lucky, a handful of people buy it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at my current thing, like I would kill for Tom King's like 1,000 likes that he gets on a video. You know what I mean? Or
Mhm.
on a post. I just wouldn't consider him indie. I have not heard of Scott Snyder in the last year or so, but I still wouldn't consider Scott Snyder indie because like he's won the highest award in the land, right? Like, well, if you're saying the Eisner Award is the highest like prestige thing that you can get, they've won those. I don't know if Scott Snyder has, but Tom King has. You know, Frank Miller has. Like, I just don't think it's hard to sell me that like nobody gives a shit about Robert Kirkman's other books, right? Besides, I mean, Invincible is getting popular now because it has a TV show, but before The Walking Dead, or with The Walking Dead now, anything Kirkman does after this, I would not consider indie because of how successful he's become. You know what I mean? I don't I couldn't do that. I feel like that would be an insult to indie writers that are actually struggling to try to get their books sold. You know what I mean? So that's
Yeah.
how I see it. That's how I see it. Any like YouTube like so one of my favorite creators right now, his name's Moist Critical. He just released his own comic book. Apparently, one of his friend's sister has worked for DC before. So she's
Mhm.
helping them make this book, and the book's called God Slap. And it's about like he's like really big into that slapping culture that's the how those big guys slap each other. Like he
Yeah.
constantly does videos on that. So I'm assuming that's why they made a book called God Slap, and like they probably sold out because he has millions of followers. I wouldn't even consider him an indie person. So it's because they have huge audiences. And now, granted, maybe in comic books, like he's considered indie because nobody knows him in the industry. But I think he has such a big audience that he's probably sold more books than maybe a Tom King or a Scott Snyder. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's just kind of how I saw it. I think it's an interesting conversation to definitely, if you want to go to your comic shops and have some chats with people, go throw that out there. So there is that. But yeah, all that.
So, real
Go for
quick
it.
before we go to listener questions, this just came out.
Mhm.
I have no idea who these people are, but I just think this is the funniest shit ever.
All right.
Nextstar will acquire 75% of the CW for $0. Instead, Nextstar will assume a significant portion of the CW's current losses, which could exceed $100 million.
For $0, they're just giving CW so bad they're giving it away.
Yeah,
Damn. I hope that cancels Gotham Knights.
that is
You
absolutely insane.
It's actually not that bad if you think about it like this. You're paying $100 million if they get the catalog rights to all of the shows, that's hella good value. Supernatural, fucking,
But see, I don't think they would get. I think they would get up to syndication for Supernatural, so maybe the first 100 episodes.
well, I mean, all those superhero shows have 100 episodes, don't they? They all
A,
win at
maj-
least 5 seasons.
a majority of them do,
Yeah.
but like
Black Lightning's probably not the only one
I
that has.
from what I know is CW did not renew their Netflix contract, which
Mhm.
is a, I believe, people can correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I've had the conversation the other day was a $1 billion contract.
Fuck. How?
Because I have no idea why because they wanted to have like their own shows on their own streaming services so that way
Yeah.
they could get that revenue because
Yeah.
they thought, oh, people, paying $10 for Netflix would just pay the $5 extra to go watch Batwoman,
Yeah.
Flash, Arrow on their own streaming
And they
service.
all got canceled.
Yeah.
um yeah, that's insane. I'm curious to see if that is true or not, but that is just random. That is so random.
Yeah.
Um
Just
but
randomly got that notification, so I just wanted to share it.
yeah. All right, cool. What viewer questions do we have on YouTube?
So on YouTube, let's see
Let's
here.
see. Sorry, I was getting a bunch of text messages. Ba, ba, ba. Let's see. Got a
So
rant.
on
Let's see. Go for it. No,
on
I got a
YouTube,
headline for sports people that Kevin Durant's requesting a trade. Big crybaby Durant. I hate that
that's hilarious.
guy.
So
Anyways,
we
go
got
for it.
our first question from Ivan Jr.
All right.
Of course,
What, dude?
avid listener. He says, "Yo, question for this week: did anybody introduce you to Batman, or did you discover his stuff on your own?"
Probably, definitely. Like, I do not have any vivid memories of somebody being like, "This is Batman." Like, I was probably watching cartoons one day, and the animated series came on, and I was just like, "Whoa!" Because I have just memories of watching the animated series, like early morning Saturday cartoons or whatever, just cartoons in general. I could get the day wrong, but usually growing up, Saturdays was the day. Like,
Yeah.
that's when cartoons was coming out. And so I remember seeing Batman. It was probably like an hour block of Batman, maybe. And so that's when I would watch it. I have mentioned it many times before. I didn't start collecting comics until a former girlfriend just bought me like a whole stack of comics. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And I just wanted to buy more art that was on the comic book covers. And then I actually started reading them because I was buying graphic novels at the time.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I don't think anybody introduced me to Batman. I think I just probably saw him on TV and thought he was cool. Probably watched the movies when I was younger. And that's kind of how I fell in love with Batman. So,
Yeah, for me, it was my dad. My dad was a big comic book guy, of course, before I was born, and he purchased the VHS tapes of the individual episodes of Batman the Animated Series
yeah.
before like they sold the entire seasons, and I would watch those as a kid.
Yeah.
So that's what introduced me to Batman, and then of course the Batman Forever, Batman and Robin movies. Raphael is our next YouTube question with
Nice.
I loved BatCat 12. I wasn't expecting the guest character, LMAO, but that makes it so much better. Since Tamaki's detective run is over, any general thoughts about her run? So, this
So we'll be
was
talking
the
about this today.
yeah, we will be talking about it. So, Raphael, we will hold that question until later.
Yeah.
But that is all of our questions on YouTube.
Yeah. So we do have some in the Discord.
I
Um,
have to apologize. Yes, Red Hood, I feel bad. I legit the entire day yesterday, prior to recording this, I was
I didn't
telling
even know yesterday
Abby.
was Wednesday. I was just like, huh?
Well, I was like the entire day I was hanging out with Abby. I was just like, I'm forgetting something. Like I
Yeah.
don't know what it is, but I'm forgetting something. And
Yeah.
I kept asking her, what am I forgetting? What am I forgetting? She knows my entire schedule.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, I think you've done everything. I think you're good. Let's just relax. Just relax. It's like, okay, we're good.
Yeah.
And the thing was, I went out to go grocery shopping
Mm.
and forgotten my phone during the time the alarm goes off to ask the question.
Mm. Dun, dun,
So
dun.
that was
I can't
my
believe
that
you forgot your phone. Like, that's crazy. That's the first thing I noticed that's gone from me. Because my brain, and I think maybe my just, like, subconscious anxiety is like, "Oh, if you forget your phone, this is the time you're gonna get in a bad crash, and you're gonna need it." Like,
Jesus.
that's always my brain. So
So
yeah.
I so at like 12:30 in the morning this morning, I was like, "Well, shit."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Okay, guys, hopefully you guys can see this by the time you guys wake up and we have some good questions." So the first question comes from uh King. He says, "Other than Grant Gustin, who would you guys want to replace Ezra Miller when he gets fired after The Flash?"
At this point, let's just reboot the universe. But a lot of people keep saying Dylan O'Brien. I don't know why.
Well, I think it's the rumors of the fact that like he's had conversations with WB
Mhm.
and there hasn't really been a like confirmation on Nightwing.
Yeah.
So I do think Dylan would be able to, if he is the same Barry Allen
Mhm.
as Ezra Miller, I think he could still give off the like kind of quirky, nerdy, shy introvert
Yeah.
that this Barry Allen is.
Yeah. Um, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna lie, I don't have somebody perfect for this role. My pick for the Riddler would have been the guy that played Beast in X-Men. I
Oh
think
yeah.
he might be a decent Barry Allen.
Oh yeah,
But
I think so. Yeah.
yeah, I just don't have a solid pick to replace Ezra Miller, to be honest. So
I'm gonna throw one out there just because Abby said that he needs to be in a superhero movie
mhm.
just for the interesting take, whatever it may be. And I know a lot of people want him to play certain characters in Marvel. Zac Efron, make him the Flash.
Yeah, it was funny. I saw him randomly. I don't know. I think he was doing this interview in a bus. So there's somebody that does a podcast in a bus, and I was like, "Yo," I was like, "The only stuff I've seen happen in a bus is
Was
very
that the
different."
conversation about him meeting Seth Rogen?
Yes, yes. And I was just all like, "That's pretty funny." Like, I like that somebody thought he was a douche, and he's like, "God damn it, I'm not supposed to like you." Like, I like that from Seth Rogen. By the way, I don't know if anybody's watching The Boys. Small spoiler, it's not a big one, but he does a cameo in the show. Completely took me out of the show. I
Oh,
don't like
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I don't like when cameos do that. When it's just like, why the fuck is he there? Like, I understand being an actor, but like, that's
Not
just
not
too.
not Zac Efron. Seth Rogen did. Yeah.
Yeah, Seth Rogen did, yeah, not Zac Efron, but like it was tied to that. So yeah, yeah, totally threw me out of it, and it's why I appreciate. I don't know, this is going into a different comic book, but apparently, oh my god, the guy that does Talking Dead, what's his name?
Chris Hardwick.
Chris Hardwick. They were like, hey, do you want to be a cameo? He was like, only if I am like super zombied out and nobody can tell it's me because I don't want people to get taken out of the show. I was like, I respect that. I
Yeah.
respect that. And all the cameos that happen in Star Wars, like we never know who they are because they're stormtroopers or whatever. Those are cool. Just do not take somebody out of the experience. Seth Rogen, asshole, totally took me out of the experience there. I was like, what the fuck? I was like, come on.
Yeah, there's
Bad cameo.
again, kind of veering off the conversation, but there's this show on Hulu called Only Murders in the Building. Really,
Hmm.
really good for people who don't
That the
know.
one with Selena Gomez?
Yes, Martin
Yeah.
Short and then
Hmm.
Steve Martin.
I want to watch that.
It's actually really, really good. But I guess it's now a gimmick. So in the first season, Sting played himself in the first season,
Oh, okay.
and in this season, Amy Schumer is playing herself
Hmm.
in the series. Amy Schumer completely takes me out of every single
Yeah.
time she is
I
up on
think
the
anything
screen.
she's in takes anybody out of the experience. So,
I don't know what
uh,
it is about her, and I feel so bad because I feel like one of those like assholes that's just like basically she's a woman, so I hate her, and it's like Jesus Christ.
yeah, yeah. I think Amy Schumer is you know, she was on the Amber Heard scale before Amber Heard was on that scale. You know what I mean? Where
Oof.
people just dislike her. Well, I mean, because there's a lot of rumors of her stealing jokes, right?
Yeah.
So like that's the big thing. And I think I want to say it's a little harder for women, but I think when women get stuck with something that is like you stole jokes or you lied about this, it sticks to them a lot more than it does to men.
Ah, so she was like the white Carlos Mencia.
Yes, yes. Yeah, and where the fuck is Carlo? Dude, I see that you don't see anything without that with Carlo Mencia. Like
Yeah.
that's yeah. And again, I feel like granted his career is due to water now. So
Yeah.
maybe Amy Schumer has it a little better cuz she's still getting gigs. So maybe my argument's not valid there, but I do think like but then again there's not as many women in the genre. So maybe it's probably just like there's not that many so that's why it stands out more. That could also be a thing. So anyways, let's go back to the questions. But yeah, so there's that for King. Now, Red Hood has a paragraph here, but he also said something else in the comic section that I thought was pretty interesting. So, what we're going to do, since we have very little questions, let's do two questions from Red Hood. First one in the comic section started to read Batman White Knight. This is just painful to read. I hate it so much. Do people actually think this is good? The first
Yes.
series was good?
It was good up until the last page.
Yeah, which
Uh
because they left it on a cliffhanger and he never addressed it.
yes.
Yeah, but the
But
last two, everything after that was garbage.
a lot of people like this series. So
Yeah.
much so that there is uh apparently uh I guess I could see it, some inspiration from Matt Reeves and the Batman
Yeah.
um uh in that movie as far as the White Knight. Uh I I liked it, and I do like uh Murphy's art,
Yeah.
but just because of like the attitude towards the, I think, some valid, then there was a lot of like people being really shitty towards him,
Yeah.
but even valid criticism, he was just like, hey, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
And it's just like, all right, I understand that some people should sometimes keep their mouth shut,
Yeah.
but there's just reviewers and critics, and you're
Mhm.
always going to be, you know, the center of attention
Is
being
he
a
still off
creator.
Twitter?
I believe he is.
Yeah, because he left, right? He left after he got really,
But I
real.
think he randomly shows up on Instagram every once in a while.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not good. I'm sorry, man. He's a good artist, but his storytelling is not great. He just blew his full load on the second book, and I don't. Why should I even care for a third book? Like, he killed everybody. Spoilers, but we talked about it on this podcast, so it doesn't matter. He killed everybody, like everybody,
Yeah.
and yeah, it just didn't. There was I don't know. It was boring. And I don't like I think the reason why I think a lot of people may or may not like Murphy is he has a rule against thought bubbles. He's like, we don't do thought bubbles. He's like, it's all dialogue. And I think that's kind of boring when it comes to Batman because you want to know what Batman's thinking. You want to know his inner thoughts. And
Yeah.
because he's not somebody that talks a lot. And so when you have a very talky Batman, it sucks. It's what Tynan showed us. Tynan
Yeah.
tried to have monologue Batman. I'm like, that doesn't work, bro. Like, it's not Batman. And yeah, so I'm not a big fan of that. But you know, it is what it is. We stopped covering that book. There is an issue out this week, and we don't give a shit. So
Yeah. No.
we stopped covering that because I think he really like the second book was kind of garbage, and I think we had soured on it towards the end. And then Harley Quinn just shat the bed. Like the Harley Quinn spinoff that was, I think, written by his wife, just wasn't great.
Yeah.
And yeah, and you know, now it's like he's, I think, seeing the Joker in his mind or some crap. And I'm just like, no,
Yeah.
no, you had to bring him back into it. You know, it is what it is. So there's that. But what is his other one in this paragraph? Did you find the
So
actual comment?
he's making fun of me, of course, for being
Hmm.
late, but he does ask, uh, what is your favorite comic book event? It doesn't
Okay.
have to be Batman or DC event, but if you want, you can just make exclusively one of those. And I, in case there is any confusion by event, I meant like Nightfall or Crisis or
Hmm. You go first on this one. Do you have one that's outside of DC? Like a
Outside,
Power
yes,
Rangers?
yes, Power Rangers, Shattered Grid, which
Mm,
was they got every single uh series of Power Rangers together in a multiversal type event, um, fighting one enemy called Lord Draken, and it was really really badass, written by Kyle Higgins
nice.
and Ryan Parrott, and I think one other writer, I can't remember her name, but yeah, it was really really good.
Yeah. I I don't know if I can answer this question honestly to the point where I think the event was good in terms of writing. So, two things that come to my mind instantly are I loved when I read Civil War for the first time at Marvel.
Yes,
I thought
okay,
Civil War was awesome because I'm like, the heroes are fighting each other, and now they fucking fight all the time, so which is
Mark
kind of
Miller,
lame.
yeah.
Yeah, so I love that event. But one event that I was super into, but I'm not gonna sit here and say the story was amazing, but I did enjoy it. Was Multiverse of Darkness, or how was it? Dark Knight's Metal is what it was
Yeah,
called. The
yeah.
first one, the good one. Because getting in those all those one shot stories of how Cyborg became Batman, how Wonder Woman's story became Batman, all that kind of stuff, those were amazing. And I was like, dude, the overall event was kind of all over the place because like they got weird metal that gave them armor and it was kind of weird. But the one shots were amazing, and I think that event overall sprouted some great characters that Scott Snyder then went to run into the ground. So, you know,
Yeah.
it started off great, but that's kind of a Snyder trope as well. So, what can you do? So yeah, I would go with those.
Yeah.
And
The
last,
Well, there's 2 questions, and
oh yes,
I
yes,
didn't
yes.
even realize who did the last question. I was like, "Oh, shit, that's a really good question." The
Yeah,
Ponderer actually has a really good
I know.
fucking
I saw
question.
it. I saw it.
So, real quick, Arwitz, what are your top favorite movies of all time? No other criteria, just personal preference.
Do you have like an actual list of top five? I can just think of top five movies that I really enjoy, but I don't know if they're genuinely my top five. I know my
So,
first one, but
I
that's
will
it.
do it like this. So, my favorite movie of all time is The Princess Bride.
Mhm.
Just think it's absolutely hilarious and fun. And I loved it as a kid. Second would be Stand By Me, the story of the 5 kids trying to find a dead body.
Yeah,
That was fun. My favorite Disney movie is Treasure Planet. So that's 3. Just love the animation, love the story. It's a play off of Treasure Island, of course, but
yeah.
in space. Then I would probably do shit.
There is no superhero movie in my top five, so I would say that.
Okay, so if we're not doing any superhero
No, you don't
movies,
have to. I'm just
okay.
saying me personally because I think superhero movies are awesome, but I don't think they are at the point where I've been like terribly moved by them.
Oh,
You know what I
that's
mean?
true.
Like
That's
other
true.
stories.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
so
yeah. So that's 3. Let me see if I can think of 2. Oh, well, I will say this. And it might actually be up there in my top 5. I'll probably have to see it 1 or 2 more times. I went to
mhm.
go see Elvis the other day with that
Oh, okay.
Disney kid, that
Mhm.
Austin Butler kid.
Yeah,
Holy shit. That dude can act. Like,
nice.
it's actually good. And I love Elvis. So
Yeah.
I will put that one temporarily on my top 5. So that's number 4. And then shit. You keep going while I think of my 5th one.
Yeah, so Dumb and Dumber is my favorite movie of all time. It's fucking hilarious. I love Jim Carrey. He's great. I love oh my god, I always forget the other actor's name, but they're both fucking amazing. So that's my top 5 or my top 1 overall. Uh Inception always comes to my mind. Like the first time I saw Inception, my mind was just blown. And I was just like, what? And I saw it for free. It was one of those movies where I went to go wait in line and I got in and I left that theater being like, what the fuck? Did it drop? Is the spindle still going? Like, what the fuck? And I thought it was absolutely amazing. If I were to actually revisit everything, is it in my top 5? I don't know, but it always comes to mind. So I'm just like, Inception. Um, Fuck. I'm trying to think of just Another Jim Carrey movie is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Think it is a fucking fantastic movie. Love that movie. Um, I know that there's probably Disney movies that I've seen that I'm just like, oh yeah, 100% top five. I love Alice in Wonderland. I think that would probably be really great. I love the fantastical craziness of it all. And I'm talking about the animation movie, not the fucking live action ones. And a fifth movie, I don't know. I'd have to go look through all of the stuff I have, but I like really like indie shit, to be honest. I'm trying to think of like another indie movie or something that I really, really enjoy. You know what? I'm gonna throw the first Pirates on there because
Nice.
I absolutely love Pirates of the Caribbean. So those are the
I'm
first
gonna
movies that made me feel like a kid again.
I'm gonna throw one. It's funny that you said kid again,
Hmm.
because I'm gonna throw my fifth one out to be a Disney movie that I absolutely loved as a kid. Is The Kid with Bruce Willis.
Oh, okay, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like I feel like I could go back and just like look a list of movies. I would have to look at a
Oh,
list of
you know what?
movies by decade.
You know what? I will waive The Kid and put Back to the
Mhm.
Future.
Okay, nice, nice. Yeah, because there's definitely movies like that that I absolutely love. One of my favorite movies when I used to watch when I was younger was The Monster Squad, which I
Oh
can't
yeah.
believe that movie has never been remade. Like that is a perfect show, The Monster Squad.
Yeah.
And like you could even it could be their kids like in modern times. Granted, I
Hmm.
think the 80s feel would probably be better, but Monster Squad, two of my favorite moments of it is the boys are all trying to spy on that one chick and they're like, "Oh, let me see, let me see." But then when that one kid kicks the Wolfman in the nards. Wolfman has nards? Like classic fucking line. Like how has that not been remade?
I
But then
mean, they
again,
were trying to make the dark universe. Maybe that was the end goal.
could have
Monster
been it.
Squad.
That would have been fucking great. I just don't see like just imagine like that is easily Stranger Things. That's easily what it is.
Yeah.
So, like and you just have more monsters, which would be fucking fantastic. So yeah, I think that should be redone. But let's go on to probably the best question of the show because it has to do with Batman.
Yeah, so it comes from Ethan the Ponderer, and he
Yeah.
asks, favorite interrogation tactic of Batman to intimidate the criminals. Now, I was thinking, in the entire almost 3 years of this podcast,
Hmm.
when have we seen in comics Batman interrogating somebody?
I'm sure we've definitely seen it. Um
But I do think it's very far and in between.
oh, for sure. Well, it's also very subtle. I think. We're
I think
probably so used to it.
Well, I also think that we live in a time now that, like, even in universe of the
Mhm.
DC universe, people see Batman and know how he was in the past, and they're just like, "I'll
Yeah.
tell you everything." You
Yeah,
know, they just get so scared,
for sure.
and I kind of miss the creativity of the interrogation stuff. Now, I mean, I think people might get a little scared with how real, quote unquote,
Mhm.
you know, interrogation can be, and
Yeah.
kind of like, probably the backlash of that.
Yeah.
But I want more. I want more interrogation
Yeah.
scenes.
Yeah, have you ever watched those, like, mini docs or just news stories on how cops do it? Like,
Yeah.
it's pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
Like, it's really fucked up, and you're just like, "Dude." And that's why, like, I obviously, I hope I'm never in this situation, but I'm just like, "Plead the fifth, bro. Give me my lawyer." Like, I ain't saying shit. Like, just give me my lawyer. Although, I'm scared about I hear in Japan, they have the right to extend your stay in jail. Like, they just go to a prison, they're like, "He hasn't said what we want, so can we get an extension?" And they've kept people in there for, like, 2 years. So I'm just
Fuck.
like everybody's like, "I wanna go to Japan." I'm like, "I'm brown." It's like, "Do I wanna go to Japan?" I'm like, "I wanna go to Japan, but, like, I need a guide. I need to pay a guide to not get in trouble." But, yeah, I don't know because I don't wanna spend my life in Japanese jail. But, okay, so favorite tactic. Obviously, the interrogation scene is the best thing about The Dark Knight.
Yes.
It is just fantastic. We don't I would say, you know what? We don't see Batman interrogate villains enough. I would say.
Yeah.
Like actual villains like Joker. Maybe it's just because like, oh, they wouldn't tell him anything. Um, but I think the way we see it in comics a lot is kind of like what you said, is where he just goes up in their face and he's all like, "Tell me, Riddler." He's like, "Okay, okay." My favorite classic is hanging people upside down off a rooftop. It is just, it's
Yes,
classic. I
it is
love it.
terrifying,
He could
and
do it with one arm, like that's just strength. Like, come
yeah,
on. It's fantastic. That, or and that's also been in movies too, so I think that's really cool. But definitely my favorite, because I'm trying to think of like what other stuff he's definitely hung people like with the batarangs or left them hanging and stuff like that. The
yeah,
shadows is also really cool, when he does that, or when he like flies down on top of them, they get really scared. But hanging them upside down by their foot is just classic, and absolutely love it. So I would go with that. Good, good shout, Ethan. Like, come on. Yeah, he had
yeah.
another good question like a few weeks back too. Staying on brand. That's what I
Yeah,
appreciate.
I'm looking at it now because I went ahead and Googled Batman interrogation in comics to see what kind of variety I would see.
Hmm.
There is like, of course, mixed in the Dark Knight, and you see a lot of those
Yeah.
scenes in there. But I see a lot of the hanging from a um, um
Light pole.
grappling hook,
Oh, okay.
and then
Yeah.
hanging by the rooftop
Yeah.
up top. And that also reminds me of the episode of Justice League where Wally was holding somebody on the roof,
Yeah.
and he's like, "You're not Batman. Like, you're not gonna do anything. It's like you're not gonna let me go." And he
Yeah.
lets him go, and he runs along the side of the building, and it is
Yeah.
interrogating him the entire
That's
way
cool.
down. Like,
Yeah.
that's fucking badass. And he's like, "Oh, I'm not Batman, but I learned it from Batman." So
Yeah. Yeah. See, it's funny to like, I would love to see every hero do that once. Like Superman just take him all the way up into the stratosphere and be like, "All right, I'm not Batman, but can Batman do this?" And they just drop him. Like, that'd be fantastic. Wonder Woman doing the same shit, with the lasso, and like that'd be cool. Just have everybody do that. That'd be awesome.
yeah,
But yeah, solid question. So appreciate your questions even on very late notice, everybody. So thank you so much for that. But now on to comics. In a week that was glorious for me, but the other comic books, not so much. So we're obviously going to end with BatCat since it's such a big milestone happening. But I don't know what we should even go. Let's just knock out Fortress, because I stopped reading this book 2 or 3
yeah.
pages in, and the art I just cannot get on board. The art reminds me of Odyssey, and so I'm just like, oh no. So I can't do it. But Batman Fortress is the continuation of the story where Batman has aliens arriving to the Earth. They've shut off all communication and power and everything, and there's no Superman. And we're trying to see what Batman has to do. We know at the end of the last series, or the last issue, was that they found out it was aliens, right? And they're like, "Oh, there's a ship. We got to find out." So he's got the rest of the Justice League going on and kind of talking about like, what are we going to do? I stopped reading because they're at the Justice League table discussing what they're going to do. Everybody's voices are kind of weird with their dialogue, in my opinion, here. But at one point, I think it's Flash asks, "Where's Jessica?" Which I don't know who that is.
Jessica Cruz, the Green Lantern.
Really? That's so weird.
Yeah,
The art doesn't make me feel like it's a modern storytelling.
yeah, it
You know
really
what I
doesn't.
mean?
Yeah.
So, I was all like, "Where's Jessica?" And somebody's like, "Oh, she's probably not here because you're being creepy." And he was like, "Just because I asked her to follow me on Instagram doesn't mean I'm creepy." And he's like, "It is after she blocked you." And I'm just like, "I'm done." Like, that was just no. What
It's
also, whatever happened to making fake social media names?
Yeah, I was really interested in that. Like, I'm like, did they pay to
Yeah,
use the name Instagram, or do you no
yeah.
longer have to pay?
I don't
Like,
know how
that's
that
odd.
works. It is some weird, like, I think semantics are involved. I don't think you can show the logo, but you can say the word if it's in reference. It's really weird because people use the word Instagram all the time in articles. There's no way they're paying for it. So,
Yeah,
like, but this is a work of art technically. So I don't know how it works, but I know there are rules like that, but you can't do it for song lyrics. So that's weird. I don't know.
yeah.
But yeah, so I was thrown out of this book at that point, but nothing really happens after that.
So they apparently go to this giant ball in the sky, which is
Yeah.
a mothership, we find
Mhm.
out.
Big orb.
And Batman has recruited like all of these different military forces, air
Yeah.
forces from different countries. You know, for the first time they are working together alongside the Justice League
Yeah.
to make a coordinated attack on this mothership. And during this attack, a majority of the humans die. Uh, the Justice League is captured while Cyborg is cut in half and Flash is out of commission with a broken leg.
Yeah. I think a lot of people forget that he heals fast, which
Yeah.
is really weird. So I
I
understand.
I
I don't like that they stole Batman's lines and gave them to the Flash here when he was jumping on all the planes and he's like, just to let you guys know, I can't fly, like ever.
yeah.
And I'm just like, that's fucking Batman's line, you asshole. You better take it back. Because that's just such a classic Batman. That's Batman's joke. Like that's his humor.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I hated that too. So but yeah. Yeah, everybody gets put out of commission, and then we find out that the aliens are looking for Clark Kent.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the book, and they blow up the Kent farm
And you
because
find out that apparently Kryptonians at least set fire and or killed or destroyed whatever race that this is.
yeah, yeah. I didn't get that far. I just saw the pictures. Um, yeah. This would you say safe enough to drop?
I think it might be safe enough to drop. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how long this is supposed to go on for. I liked the concept of it at the start, but the art just knocks me out, man. It's like the Tim Drake art. It just doesn't fit. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't. That new Tim Drake look. Also, by the way, the guy that's designing all the new logos for DC is killing it.
I have been following him, seeing him like make all the logos. He
Mhm.
is on fire, dude.
Fantastic. This is why I
Yeah.
tell anybody if you can learn how to edit or you can learn how to do graphic design, you can do some good shit in this world. Cuz it looks like he was just playing around and fucking doing a bunch of things and got popular and now he
Yeah.
works for DC. He essentially the new Tim Drake logo, the new Detective logo and the new Superman Action Comics logo are all him. So
Yeah.
like those are big names. So congrats to him. Stuff looks good. The Tim Drake logo looks great. The art for the Tim Drake series does not. It just looks so weird. It'll if it's lucky enough, it'll go to October. So during October, if there's a Halloween issue, it'll look great. But everything else just looks kind of wonky on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, Fortress. Y'all guys can keep reading it. I don't think we're gonna cover it because it's just not. It's not great in my opinion. Moving on to the second not great book this week, and I just gotta say, Rosenberg, what happened, my guy? What is going on with this? Why haven't we got another vampire issue? Like,
Yeah.
it's been
Actually,
months.
it has been a few months, and I am looking back now. We are what? This is going into July.
Yeah.
Really quick, I'm going to
You
take
search
a
it up
look.
and I'll talk about it. So
Yeah.
this book is centers around Harley Quinn. It is called DC
We
versus
get one
Vampire
next week.
Killers. We're getting one next week?
Yeah.
Okay. But we've gotten two one shots or spin-offs, I should say. They're whatever. We've gotten these and they're not good. The first one was emo Nightwing with Robin being a vampire now. We found that out. And then this one was Harley Quinn. Like, how is this even tied to like what make doesn't make sense here is it's we follow Harley Quinn. She talks about fighting all these people. She's with Clayface, she's with Solomon Grundy, she's even with Catwoman, and she fights all these vampires. She gets Lex Luthor's blood. Why does
I
she have that?
So she gets it from Jim Gordon.
Mm-hmm.
How Jim Gordon got it, I'm not entirely sure because it
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily say.
Batman, I just don't see Batman giving that up to anybody. So that's really weird. Especially Gordon. Gordon can't protect himself like that. Come on. Like,
Was Gordon in the other tie-in? Was Gordon a part of that group that was like in the safe haven with
They all
Alfred.
died.
Not all of them.
A
I
majority
wouldn't
of them.
assume.
Well, remember they were on camera. They got captured,
Oh,
and
that's
they were on
true.
camera. They all got burned. Alfred was the only one that didn't get burned. You could assume that maybe he wasn't there,
Yeah.
but um,
Plot
yeah. So
hole.
that yeah, that was really weird. How she got Lex Luthor's blood, and she ended up doing exactly what I thought Batman was gonna do. So, of course, they made my girl, Catwoman, a vampire. I was like, God damn it, of course. Which I don't remember. I thought Catwoman died early, but I might be thinking of Undead. She
Yeah.
died early in that book too, right?
Yeah, it was first
So,
issue.
yeah. So, yeah, Harley's chilling with Catwoman. Catwoman tries to steal the blood, and Harley's like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And she's like, "Oh, I was just looking what this is." And she's like, "Oh, that's something, something." And she goes, and it turns out Clayface is dead. Solomon Grundy got his head chopped off. Harley ends up beating the shit out of everybody that tries to eat her. But we find out later the reason why she was able to win is because she injected herself with Lex Luthor's blood. And Catwoman's like, "Where's the blood, Harley?" And she was like, "Well, I'll just make you my pet." And she bites her, and she's like, "Oh, I forgot to tell you, his blood's in my blood now, so sucks for you." And she's like, "You killed me, Harley," and she fucking disintegrates. And
Yeah.
so now Harley is the most powerful person in this story because she can't die from vampire bites.
Yeah.
I mean, she could easily be crushed, torn apart, done all this other kind of stuff. But um, what happened in this story? Like, it
I
felt like we were on track for something great, and it's
but
fallen.
we worried about this. We
Yes,
worried about
100%.
spinoffs.
Yep.
We said that this could be a good series, but if it goes into spinoffs, it may get out of control.
Yep.
I'm not I'm not mad at Harley being like the strongest character here.
Yeah, not at all. I love Harley.
I think the semantics of how we got here
Mm-hmm.
with little explanation
Yes.
kind of sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would probably want to know the exchange and why. Like, why did Alfred go to Jim and say, "Hey, you need to give this blood to Harley"?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So here's the thing. Here's the thing. You and I, off podcast, have been having conversations about editors because in a few weeks,
Yes.
we're going to have a big conversation about editors.
Is it
We can't say
in
why.
a couple weeks?
No,
Okay,
it's
so
like a few weeks from now because it's mid-July. We can't talk about it
oh,
until mid-July.
you're right.
So there's something we can't talk about, unfortunately, y'all. But it made us question: are there even editors at DC? And I'm curious. Remember when we were doing Tynan stuff, and it did happen during COVID when we got the Joker reveal months before we got the Joker reveal?
Yeah.
Do you think this is happening with these books? Do you think these books should have came out later? Like, is there a reason why there's such a gap in between what happened last and the next issue? You know?
I and that may all depend on art. It may depend on the writer also.
Mm-hmm.
Like we can't necessarily blame it at the fact that like there's no editors or whatnot. But also editing could be the problem with that also.
Yeah.
Is oh, this isn't up to par, take it back,
Yeah.
finish
I mean,
doing
I
these
would
edits and everything
assume
else.
an editor would be the one to make the call, being like, oh, you can't release this book because this book comes first. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they're the ones that put the notes in there. They're like, oh, read book whatever. So I don't understand why these books are out. Like, it is just, and this has been going on for years now because Dark Multiverse Cackadoodoo, whatever the fuck it was called, the second one, that was bad. And how many one shots did we get in between each like solidified story? Like 4 or 5, it felt like. It
Yeah.
was crazy.
Yeah.
And the stories continued in those one shots, which were terrible. I do not think spin-offs should happen until after the main story is complete.
I think so because you read the main story
Mm-hmm.
and then you start as a reader, oh, there's a plot hole here. oh, there's a
Yep.
plot hole here. Oh, there's a
Mhm.
plot hole here. And then you come out with the spin-offs and you're like, "Oh, that explains everything."
Yeah. Yeah.
That is better than, okay, next issue they're going to say something and because I read this, it's going to make sense.
Yeah.
Like, I would appreciate later on finding out than reading it linearly, because I feel like the main title is going to be more fluid than when you randomly place these other books in them.
Yeah. My thing is the spin-offs should never have anything that progresses the main story, right? It should just be extra information. So like when we were in Dark Knights, right? We had the main story of the Dark Multiverse, but we got introduced to all of the Dark Knights, and then the one shots were how they became the Dark Knight, right? Like it had
Yeah.
nothing to do with the main story. When Tom King did the wedding stuff, right? We got those spin-offs of what every kid was doing before the wedding or up into the wedding, right? Like we
Yeah.
saw, Damien was going through his thing, had that great conversation with Catwoman. We saw what was going on between Batgirl and Nightwing. Like everybody had their kind of thing, what Harley was doing and blah, blah, blah. So those spin-offs made sense because it was leading up to the wedding. It didn't interfere with the actual story. And I think that's how spin-offs need to be done. But it seems like DC is like, oh, let's make the stories part of these spin-offs so people have to buy them. And I think that's the wrong way to go.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of spin-offs should also be stuff like the way Rosenberg just did The Boy, which I think was really great.
Yeah.
So, but that is what it is. So yeah, that's what happens with vampires. I don't know what's going on here. I don't know why they're doing it this way, but I feel like a story that had a lot of potential is starting to go downhill pretty quickly. So we'll see if we get back on track. But now, like if Nightwing is still in his Nightwing suit in the next issue, and we're just learning on how he becomes emo Nightwing, I'm gonna be hella confused because like they progress the story so much already.
Yeah.
Like Harley, like this next issue should have Harley in it, I think, and should have Vampire Alfred and all this other stuff. So I'm just hella confused with what's going on there. Um, but moving on from that, let's go on to Detective Comics. This is the final Tamaki issue, ladies and gentlemen. Her run is coming to an end, and we will be answering Raphael's comment after we talk about this. But yeah, what did you think about this issue, man? I know you've kind of been on the fence with this.
This last story I've kind of been on the fence of, and I unfortunately feel like this arc should have been stretched out a little longer.
Yeah, we could
It
have had a lot less Shadow of the Bat or whatever those things
it
was.
kind of has an abrupt ending. Now, I feel like the story of, excuse me, Caroline,
Yeah.
again, I think there needed to be one or two more issues to really have her ending to this story
Hmm.
mean something to me as a reader.
Yeah.
I can clearly see the hardship of what we see at the end of this with Batman and her mother,
Yeah.
because those are characters in this universe. They're characters of this story. They're gonna have that emotion
From the start of her run
attached.
too.
Yeah, attached to these characters. But with Caroline doing what she did, and I'll go ahead and say it, it gets to a point where she's basically like, I'm too far gone. Like
Yeah.
I am a killer. I am supposed to uphold justice, and I didn't. Batman, the only way to save everybody is to save you, and that is to not save me. And she freaking knees him in the chin. He
Hmm.
loses balance and lets go of her, and she goes quietly into the night of Gotham's Bay,
Yeah.
and she is assumingly dead. But
Yeah. Because
again,
they don't find the body.
no body, it
Yeah.
can mean that they can come back. So, how'd you
Yeah.
feel about this?
I do think that like another issue would have been good because we didn't really learn a lot about this. Talia's involvement, they kind of explain. I thought was kind of lame.
Hmm.
She was giving Riddler information for information or something along those lines. But it just kind of blows my mind that Riddler or Talia, for that matter, would know anything about the Donovans. Like, they're not that big of a character, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I don't understand like what Riddler needed. And I just feel like Riddler could have went through a bunch of other avenues. And again, I don't understand. Talia just feels shoehorned into this series. And it's because of Shadow War or Shadow of the Bat or whatever's going on with Deathstroke. She's a part of that. So they're like, oh, we got to put her in all the other series. Like another book we're not covering today because we dropped it a long time ago, Robin. She got out of prison over there and like they caught up to her and like she got away in some car and it's just like really weird. I
Oh,
don't
well,
understand what's
that
going
kind
on.
of plays an important role because the one thing here that is very like I think Robin and Detective go hand in hand
Hmm.
because of the story at the end of this as well, the uh Gotham Girl story.
I didn't
Um
even read that.
so Chase Meridian
Hmm.
is a bad guy now.
Yeah, I was that was weird reading about that because Batman was like Chase is the center of this all, and I was just like, okay,
Why?
no idea,
Like it just
no idea.
it literally comes out of nowhere. Like it feels
Yeah,
like it comes out of nowhere. Uh
yeah,
and I understand like it's supposed to be this big thing. You're like, oh, Chase Meridian is the bad guy. But for
yeah.
me, it's more of like a Chase Meridian is the bad guy
Yeah,
question
like
mark.
how? Like they should have shown more instances. Or this is one of those moments where you go back and you look at key moments from that 10-issue series and you're like, "Oh, those were weird things happening," and you show that Chase was the reason that they were happening. That's what you do here. But they were just like, "Oh, Chase is the center." And I'm like, "Of what? What is she the center of? I don't understand."
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. That was very odd. So, yeah, and I was wondering why Gotham Girl was going after Chase. It made Gotham Girl look like the bad guy. And again, that is just very bad storytelling. I didn't know those were supposed to connect. Like, and a lot of people don't read the backstories.
Well, and
So,
I have a huge problem with still the portrayal of Gotham Girl as a villain.
yeah.
And again, they kind of like at the very like end of this whole story, they're more so like saying that she's under like misunderstood or whatever.
Mhm.
That story was already told
Yeah.
in Tom King's run. Like
Yeah.
she's
She was
already
literally a
supposed
villain.
she's supposed to be like a I can understand if she's having a hard time coping. Like she may have imposter syndrome. I
Yeah.
can understand that. But
Mhm.
the what she is dealing with in this backup story,
Yeah.
it's so dumb.
You know what would have been a better story? Her trying to save the day throughout Gotham and people being like, weren't you one of the ones that were keeping us under lock and key? And her having to deal with that.
Yeah.
Her trying to be a hero again when people see her as a villain. That's a way more compelling story.
But again, I think people are afraid to harken back to Tom King's run because
Yeah.
of how polarizing it is.
Yeah.
Instead, like I think that even if a story is polarizing, excuse me, if you
Jesus.
can if you can like make a good story out of something that was even controversial,
Yeah.
that makes you look good still. Like
Yeah.
and you could make the excuse, quote unquote, or you can convince people, quote unquote, that you turned a bad thing good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even if
For
you don't
sure.
even see Tom King's run as bad. Like you
Yeah.
could still be like, "Oh yeah, look what I did." Like, remember this story that nobody liked? Now I made it likable. Whatever, you know.
Yeah, I made a comment on Twitter that I'll mention after we talk about BatCat. That I said about Tom King that also think is probably pretty polarizing, but
Okay.
I think it fits. So we'll go from there. But anyway, so there's Detective. So overall, let's talk about what Raphael mentioned. How do you feel about Tamaki's run overall? Let's do a scale from 1 to 10. What would you say?
1 to 10, I would say a 7.5, possibly a 7.
Yeah.
And the only reason why is if you take honestly, if you take Shadow of the Bat and this last story out,
Mhm.
easily a 9
Yeah.
or a
I
10.
I give it a 7 just overall. I don't wanna take away stories because I would be a hypocrite at this point saying, like, creative writing is a term for a reason, and I think Tamaki had to deal with a lot of bullshit, because of what Tynan was doing,
Yes, yes.
and so she's probably just like, "Well, fuck, I gotta
Well,
come
and
up with something."
the mismanagement of the Batman title as a whole,
Yes.
because
Yes.
having to deal with the fact that, oh, Williamson is only going to be temporary writing
Mhm.
Batman, and so because of that, you have to pick up the slack with writing weekly for a good 2 months and all of that
Yeah.
other bullshit. Like that hurts a writer.
Yeah.
So
I think
I I I
mm,
I think completely taking out the story in order to give it a 9 is a little harsh of me saying,
yeah.
but I do understand what she had to go through.
For sure. And I think, we talked about it weekly. We were just like, if it wasn't for Rosenberg's backstory, we probably would have stopped reading it. You know what I mean? Because it wasn't interesting. It was a lot of repeat stuff. And I think that's hard for any writer to go from bi weekly to, oh, hey, we need you to write for 10 weeks straight, and you're just like, oh crap, and you just got to just make up stuff. And even if you had a long-term plan, you got to rush that long-term plan now. So I do think she just kind of had some bad moments, but overall I think a 7 is fair. I did enjoy a lot of her stuff, and she was the more interesting Batman story for a long time
Yeah.
because Tynan just wasn't doing anything great, or he was just playing the hits and trying to introduce new characters that we did not care about. So yeah, I don't. I think she definitely had a disadvantage for a majority of her run, but we are going into Ram V in the future. I'm excited about that. I still don't think we've gotten that book yet. So in our early reviews, because I'm excited to read that the moment it hits our folders. But yeah, I don't know. I'm excited for what's going to happen with Detective Comics because I was enjoying Catwoman, not enjoying Catwoman anymore. But yeah, I'm excited for the future. But I hope Tamaki jumps on some other stuff because I think she was a fantastic writer. So good stuff. And she tried to do some stuff. Again, she also had to deal with like the virus crap, or she was making the virus crap, but she had to deal with that stupid Sentinel bullshit at the start that we were like, okay, who is this character that they're trying to force? She got forced no money Batman onto her. Like that's a lot of crap she had to deal with. Like if we were to go back and look at all the stuff she had to deal with, I'm pretty sure we'd probably be a little bit more lenient as well. Be like, oh damn, this I remember this thing sucked. I forgot about that. Because yeah, it was crazy. But yeah, so there is that. But now let's move on to issue 12 of Batman Catwoman. It is finally here, ladies and gentlemen. A year and 6 months in the making.
Yeah.
BatCat has finally finished. Pretty crazy. This was Dude, this was at the start of the pandemic. No, this was at the start of 2021. We were no, was it 2019? 2020. It came out in December. Is it of 2019?
Yeah.
Okay. No.
Yeah.
It was no, it came out
We
in 2020 because we're in 2022 now. It's a year and a half, a year and
Yeah,
six
yeah,
months.
yeah. Sorry. Yeah, yeah.
So
2020.
December 2020, we were like, this book is gonna save this podcast because Batman was so bad at that time. And this was the whole sentiment when that first issue came out. Even non-Tom King lovers were just like, Batman is good again. Like that's what happened. Like, and we had mentioned this on the podcast. We said, because we knew that the whole series was polarizing for Tom King, people are going to want Tom King back after what we're reading in Tynan. And that's exactly what happened. People were like, oh yeah, Batman's good again. Batman's great, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. Again, that's not slight to Tamaki. She had to deal with a bunch of shit. I don't even remember at what point she got on either, though. Pretty sure BatCat was happening way before. Because I think was it Tomasi that was on Batman during some of Tynan's run, or no?
No, Tomasi was wait, yeah, detective, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because Tomasi is like tail end of his detective. I think was going into Tamaki, and it was bad. I think there was some of those like bumper writers in between. I think there was just some like random Batman stories that happened, and it was just like
Mhm.
random writers. But yeah, because I don't think Tamaki was there during the whole time of BatCat. But anyways, so obviously I have my opinions on this for sure. But what did you think about it? Is this also one of the Tom King books that you feel like you're gonna have to go reread altogether, or you feel like you got the gist of it pretty
I
much?
got the gist of this. I
Yeah.
think that because there wasn't anything too crazy,
Hmm.
like the one crazy thing was the whole thing with the Phantasm, and it's
Yeah.
explained here
Yeah.
very, very well,
Yep.
and it's not complicated at all.
Yeah.
Uh, so I think I got it pretty well. I think although those random 3 issues with Liam Sharp, I'm really kind of hesitating getting that hardcover, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I got to become a millionaire, man, so I can go
But
pay
I
for
will
that
say
shit.
this, I'll show Juice in the camera. As soon as I saw this panel,
Yeah.
I was like, "God damn!" Like,
Yeah. Fantastic.
Clayman, I know that it takes so damn long for you to probably draw this one fucking page,
Yeah.
but I need more. I need
Yeah.
more of Clayman in my
Yeah,
life.
he's just like, I got to make sure all the abs and the nipple and everything is perfect in this. It's going to take me 4 months for sure. Um dude, I'm not going to lie to you, like I don't understand. Look, I know comic fans are all different. I made a post recently. The reason why I don't take comic fans serious is because of the way they've been treating Tom Taylor recently, which is fucking god awful.
Yes, it is.
Um but it blows my mind that people think Tom King is not a good writer. Like you can not like his stuff, but to say he's not a good writer blows my mind because the way he tied everything together, like even going back to his Batcat series or Batman series, is pretty insane. You don't see that from a lot of people besides like Jeff Johns, right? Like people don't think that far ahead. A lot of people are like, they'll get
Well,
it.
I don't think this is him thinking that far ahead because, again, Tom King himself says, "Oh, I only think of the next issue."
Yeah.
He doesn't think of the entire story. He thinks of the next issue.
Hmm.
It was appropriate to add, I'll just go ahead and say it, Lois and Clark in here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, although I think it's
I
kind,
call
it's,
bullshit. I
I,
just don't think there's no way he could do that. Not on Lois and Clark. I just don't think you can't think of the future. I call bullshit.
oh no, I'm not saying that you can't think of the future.
Yeah.
I just think that, oh, you calling bullshit on Tom King?
Yes, on him saying that he only thinks about the next issue. I call bullshit. I think he probably has a vision for the ending, and he's like, I want to end it this way, and then that's how you get to thinking of like, oh, I could add this. This happened in this. I could do that. I think that's how it works. I call bullshit for week to week. There's no way.
One thing that I call bullshit on in this book
Hmm.
is the fact that Superman and Lois in super speed
Yeah,
just show up in front of this building where
yeah,
there was clearly somebody there that could have seen everything.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry.
That
No.
was very comic booky. Very comic booky. Well, at the same time, it was like Superman's just listening to them.
Well,
You
like
know what I mean?
that is
That is
something
canon.
about
Yeah.
Clark though,
Yeah.
is like it's known that he knows the heartbeat of all of his close friends,
Yeah.
specifically Batman's, and always has an ear out for everybody.
Yeah.
I will say this person that's at this desk talking to uh Bruce and Selena,
Mhm.
I gave in my head the same voice as the monster from Monsters Inc. Mike Wazowski.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I legit
I
just
gave
gave
her a
her
Roseanne type of voice. That's what I went with. So, like raspy cigarette type of yeah, yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
shit.
I get what you're saying here. But yeah,
But
so let's dive or go
well,
for it, go for it.
I was just gonna say I enjoyed this ending because
Mhm.
the ending was what it was supposed to be. Like, yeah,
Yeah, could have been better.
the fact that, like, yes, you still have the butting of the heads
Yeah.
of Helena and Selena, like
Mhm.
that we know that was going to be a thing.
Yeah.
But Tom King promised a wedding,
Mhm.
and whether that be a $1 million wedding, a $500 wedding, a
Yeah.
$25 wedding, whatever have it. It was a wedding.
Yeah.
And usually wedding days, although there are some very scary bridezilla stories,
Mhm.
weddings are supposed to be fun, they're supposed to be cheerful,
Yeah.
and there was moments of that in this issue.
Yeah.
And so you end on a good note for this entire 12 issues, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I don't think you could have ended this in any other way. I think ending with the "I do" kiss is the best way to end this series. So let's go through it by section. So, right? So we know that Helena and Catwoman have an issue. Like, Helena's not going to turn in her mom, right? Or that's what we get the vibe for. But we find out that Selena got rid of all the evidence to the point where they couldn't convict her if they wanted to. And as maybe kind of a fuck you, she gives I think gives Joker's glasses to Helena, right? Those are Joker's glasses.
Yeah.
And he's like, "This is the last thing." And she's like, "Are you kidding me with this? Like, what is this? I would have much rather have the ring." And because she thought that she was getting the ring that Bruce gave to Selena. And Selena's like, "Bitch, your dad gave me that ring on our first time we met. Like, you ain't, I'm dying with that shit." And so
Yeah.
I loved that. I loved that it doesn't matter what Helena like is saying. Selena, her connection to Bruce is going to die with her. And I really enjoyed that. Granted, she says that she doesn't keep it on her. So I'm curious on where it is or what she does with it. But I thought that was pretty interesting, and that's kind of where that story ends. It's just like, I'm gonna go on vacation or I'm gonna do something, and when I get back, things are gonna be fine or whatever. Like, I'm not gonna get convicted, so you go do you go do that, and that's just kind of it. Ends with that kind of love hate relationship between mother and daughter, right? Which is very symbolic of what Bruce has kind of had with the boys, right?
Yeah.
Like, they love him, but they butt heads, and it's just how it is. So I thought that was kind of good. We have a nice homage to the first cover of BatCat, with Bruce kind of talking about how him and Selena, like, what are we? And they kind of just reference like the whole thing of like, we're just two, flawed human beings trying to be what we can be. And they have the hugging element and like just this fucking buff ass Bruce Wayne with a Selena behind him. And it is literally, they have the original BatCat cover behind them, which I think is really cool. So there's that. I thought that was kind of cool. And then we get a bunch of just conversations between Batman and Catwoman in what I would assume is present day kind of stuff, right? And it's
Yeah.
just like, she's like, "Oh, and he's the Joker. Fuck the Joker." Again, we had a lot of people assuming like, "Oh man, what if she hooked up with the Joker?" None of that happened. There was no implied of that. So anybody that's doing that, that didn't happen. So I'm glad there was no other craziness of that happening. And then again, like I said, they go to this small chapel in Gotham somewhere. It's the classic like Vegas chapel, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? And it's this old lady or this bigger lady, and she's just all like, "Oh yeah, what do you want? You want the Gotham package or the what's the Batman package?" They're like, "Oh, we have you get married by somebody dressed up as Batman, but that's an extra $99." And like, just kind of talking, they're like, "Yeah, let's just go ahead and get that." And so I think
Bruce
that's
is
kind of
like,
cool.
"No, we're not doing it." And Selena's
Yeah.
like, "Yes, yes, we are. It's
Yes.
fine. We're just
Yeah.
gonna go ahead and go with it."
I love that she was like, "Yeah, go ahead and do it. He's loaded. It's the only reason why I'm marrying him." And she's like, "Good for you, honey. Good for you." And so I thought that was funny. And yeah, there's a lot of they're like, "Oh, you need somebody to be here to witness your marriage vows, or we could hire somebody, but it's gonna cost you extra." And she's like, "Oh," and that's when she's like, "Oh, come on, just invite them. Like, it'll be great to have them here. They're friends and blah blah blah." That's when Bruce is like, "Hey, Clark, we're doing the thing. If you want to show up, like, come on." They show up in suit. They show up in what they were wearing in the date outfit, which I
Yeah.
thought was hilarious. So I thought that was really great, because the one thing I will say is, even if people hated Tom King, a lot of people still praised that date
Yeah.
issues. So even that was really praised, which I thought was pretty awesome. We get this one series of Croc fighting Batman and Catwoman just chilling on the side. She's like, "So what is this? Like, are we gonna talk about it?" And he's like, "Can we wait?" While he's fucking fighting this big ass killer Croc and getting thrown around. And he's all, she's like, "I'm not a house cat that you can just domesticate and drink milk or whatever." And he's like, "Fine, no milk or whatever." And he's like, "The one thing I do know is that I love you." And she's like, "Oh fuck." Like, it's kind of like the whole stance. Then we get the present or the future where we go to this beach where Selena's talking to somebody on the beach and we find out it's Phantasm. So Phantasm didn't die like we assumed, or I assumed, but there was a possibility. We were talking about it, like, oh, did she just die in this? Um, and what we learn is that Phantasm made a deal with Catwoman, and Catwoman is like, I will kill Joker. He will die, but you have to leave. Like, you cannot be around here. And I think Selena did that for Batman because she knows that this would continue. Bruce would always save Joker from Phantasm because he believes life is just sacred and nobody should die no matter how bad they are. And we had that conversation in the book, which I think is fantastic. She questioned it. She brought the military into it. Like, are they heroes? Batman was like, they have orders, blah, blah, blah. The whole thing. What I loved about this was like Selena was like, "Oh, do you want to explain it or something like that?" And Phantasm talks about, she was like, "It's the same no matter what." Like, what does she say? She's like, "Why does anything happen like it does? It's all the same answer. Everyone knows, I know, even the Joker. He learned. There are rules. You break them, eventually you get what's coming to you. Whatever you do, your angel of death awaits." And I think this was fantastic, right? Because just looking at everything, the stretch of everything Tom King has done with Batman, Batman tried to be the best person he could, right? He didn't kill. He didn't do things no matter how bad something got. He got to die of old age. Or maybe he had a medical condition, but when you get older, a lot of people have medical conditions.
Yeah.
Nobody murdered the Batman, right? This isn't the CW that just, killed Bruce Wayne for no reason on the show to make it happen. Bruce Wayne died of, we'll just say, natural causes or of something that took his life naturally and not a villain. We know from the Selena Kyle issue that she was murdered in the streets. She doesn't get to die
Yeah.
peacefully in a bed. She dies in an alleyway where she was essentially, as Tom King tries to put it, which wasn't one of my best things, where she was found, right? And so I like this idea that if you do bad shit, your angel of death awaits. And that was Phantasm for a while, but Joker's angel of death was Catwoman. And he did so much bad shit, he didn't deserve a nice death. So he got a bad one. And I kind of like all of that symbolism put into this. I thought that was pretty awesome. And again, Selena Kyle, like, we already watched her death, but her angel of death awaited. And it was somebody trying to steal from her getting killed and
Yeah.
killing her, which I thought was pretty fantastic. And also, what I love about this the most is Tom King wrote it in a way to where, like, oh, you can't bring Phantasm back. She made a deal with Catwoman to where she would never come back. So anybody else that tries to bring Phantasm back would just be doing it to do it. But Tom King wrote a reason why she should never be in comics again. And I think that's pretty awesome. Because there are some characters you shouldn't have in comics all the time. I think Phantasm is one. So I thought that was pretty cool.
See, that I think that's a little unfair of you to say, considering, like, we're like, oh man, why hasn't anybody used Phantasm? Now you're saying, oh, nobody should use Phantasm because Tom
No,
King
no,
used
no, no,
it.
no. So I said there are certain characters you shouldn't use all the time. Dr. Manhattan's one of them. And DC apparently has a rule about Dr. Manhattan. Tom King's even joked about it. He's like, oh yeah, when we find fuck ups in our comics, we ask DC if we can use Dr. Manhattan. They're like, no. We're just like, oh, Dr. Manhattan did it. That's why it fucks up. What I'm saying is, you need to protect certain characters, right? Like, Joker shouldn't be in everything. We've talked about how Joker needs to disappear for
Yeah.
like a few years, right?
Yeah.
And this is a good way to be like, oh, Phantasm shouldn't be in the books. Because I think there are some characters you just shouldn't try to throw in there. Look at Red Claw and Catwoman. That's such a fucking terrible debut and such a terrible
Yeah, that was
issue.
bad.
And so, like, I think sometimes you need to protect people from themselves. Because I think there's a lot of writers out there that'll be like, oh, I have this story for so and so, and let's bring in this person. They've never been used before. And look what, like, you get stuff like Red Claw. And it's like, I don't think everybody should have the ability to use every character, but that's when editors and people and higher ups at DC should be a little bit more controlling in that sense. Like, no, your story has to be a banger for you to use that character. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you just can't have Manhattan everywhere. if somebody wants to make a better Phantasm story, I think you should just make it within the realms of Tom King's story. But if Phantasm wasn't touched for so long, what other stories are they going to tell with her? You know what I mean?
True.
That's what I'm saying. So I just like it in that sense that there's a reason why that character doesn't need to be around. Or I guess okay, so to retract, it gives a reason why Phantasm isn't in Gotham. We'll say it that way. Not that other people shouldn't be able to use her, but it writes a reason for that character never being around again and why Joker is still alive. You know what I mean? Because you would assume that if unless Phantasm dies, that's the only reason she wouldn't continue going after the Joker. But if she made a deal with Catwoman where Catwoman's like, I'll kill him, like I promise you, I don't know when, but he will die. And then, it goes to Phantasm. She's like, all right, I'm out. And it's a good reason to like, it kills that love interest. I mean, I don't think there was a love interest after the movie anymore with Batman. But I don't know. I like when a story solidifies why that character hasn't been around for so long, right?
Yeah.
Because now, as Tom King says, people make continuity, right? Viewers make continuity, readers make continuity. It gives us continuity on why we've never seen Phantasm. And like it was in the early years of Batman, that makes sense. But not being around in later years, I like when writing makes sense in that way. You know what I mean? And it's not magical bullshit. Like, oh, time travel, or something. Oh, it's Flashpoint. Changed everything, It's nice when it's just simple writing. And I think I appreciate that a lot. But overall, I don't think this issue could have ended in a better way. Like,
Speaking of the ending,
Clay's showing me something right now in the
Tom
podcast.
King, I see you. I see you. I see what you did.
Was that oh wait, hold on.
So
Oh,
this is I'm showing Juice the last page of BatCat is very, very similar to the last page of the wedding album of Superman and Lois.
Nice. Good homage. Good. I mean, Tom King does love to pull from old comic books and redo the art. Well, has his artist redo the art. Overall, man, so this is what I said. This is my hot take on Twitter. I got a few likes from it too, but not a lot. Hot take: Tom King has progressed Batman more than any other writer since Frank Miller. There have been many great Batman runs since Frank Miller, but Tom King dared to be different and bring something new to the Batman title. Today they get married. Let's hope DC keeps it that way. What are your thoughts on that? I think Tom King, again, just to clarify for any angry people out there that have favorite writers or better writers, I'm not saying there haven't not been great Batman runs. I love Scott Snyder's Batman run until Gordon gets in there, but I think it's one of the best Batman runs out there. But I don't think that Scott Snyder evolved the character of Batman more than anything else. He did the villains. He brought in a good villain that people are going to talk about forever, but I don't think he progressed the character of the Batman in any way that made him different, in my opinion. Tom King did something that other people haven't done. Frank Miller, and the reason why I'm saying Frank Miller is because we had campy Batman for so long, and everybody's like, Frank Miller brought in this brutal, gritty Batman, and it was crazy. Not everybody loves it. I mean, I think Frank Miller, a lot of his writing's garbage, but you can't take away that he changed Batman. Now, do I think that Tom King is going to change Batman the way Frank Miller did? No, I don't think anybody's ever going to do what Frank Miller did because we've gotten so much more of Batman since then. The way they print it out and they just make a bunch of random stories. I don't think and we have the internet now, right? Like everybody has an opinion. They don't have to go to the comic shop to read shit. They steal it from the internet and they bitch about it online. So I don't think you're ever going to get that like key kind of pop anymore. But this is so different, man. Like it's so different than any other Batman stuff that we've read. Like for the character.
I agree that it was different. As far as there hasn't it's hard to say that because between Frank Miller and Tom King, there was so much Batman.
Yeah.
And a lot of it does get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that it wasn't different though.
But my thing is no, and that's why I say there's plenty of great stories. But look at what you just said. It gets lost in the shuffle. you might hate Tom King's run, but you fucking know what happened in Tom King's run. You know what I mean? Because it's polarizing.
But okay, when did Frank Miller make his staple on Batman? 80,
80 something, probably.
86, 87.
I'll look it up. You
I
keep
would
talking
say.
about it. Yeah.
So let's just say 87. 87, 97,
What
oh
came first,
seven,
Year One or
17.
Dark Knight? Dark Knight was what made it polarizing, right?
I'm pretty
If I'm
sure.
not mistaken. Let's see. Dark Knight Returns, 86.
Okay, 86.
Yeah.
So 96, oh 06, 16. So that's 36 years.
Mm-hmm.
So you're telling me that in 36 years, Tom King's run will not get lost in the shuffle, you don't think?
If we keep the current people in DC, no, because they're not going to be like, they're probably not going to be married. So everybody would be like, oh yeah, that was the only time they got married.
And that's the thing though, because if you look at the cover of this book, that little label at the very bottom, DC Black Label,
Mm-hmm.
people are going to use that excuse. Oh, it's Black Label, it doesn't count.
Yeah.
It's Black Label, it doesn't count.
Again, Killing Joke was not continuity until they made it continuity. It's the same argument. We can have that argument all day.
True. I want to say stuff so bad.
Mm-hmm.
In
Oh,
regards to the
stuff?
end of this month or
Yeah.
this upcoming month,
Yeah.
we will get to it when we get to it.
Yeah.
And it pertains to this argument, but when we get there, I think we're able to say a lot more, of course.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's the one thing that sucks about reading in advance is we can't talk about it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah, but no, I will stick by this argument because again, I'm not saying that there hasn't been great Batman stories. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I don't think that all those, even though those Bat stories have been great, they're still just Batman stories. You know what I mean? This, I think this evolved the character more than any of those other stories did because let's go back and just think about Scott Snyder's, right? Scott Snyder's story is amazing. But why
Mhm.
is it amazing? Because of certain things he did in it. Like, right? Like the Joker going after the family, that was kind of cool. The Court of Owls being a very different new character and it was like they embedded themselves in the Batman mythos. That was pretty awesome. But none of that did anything for Batman necessarily. He got to do some detective shit, but I don't think it evolved the character of Batman. We know that Scott Snyder doesn't know how to write relationships. So like he didn't evolve his relationship with anybody.
No, he didn't evolve his relationship with anybody, but I do think that it did change the aspect of how we look at the planning of Batman,
Mm-hmm.
the prep time of Batman,
Mm-hmm.
because of the the last invention.
Yeah.
That within itself brought a whole new take on it. But I
Mm-hmm.
do think that even the Court of Owls themselves
Yeah.
changed the way Batman had to, you know, change as far as his prep time, his
Yeah.
thinking of what's the phrase, the underestimating of his enemies. I think,
Yeah.
but again, I do understand in that instance though,
Mm-hmm.
you kind of only remember that
Yeah.
when you're looking back at the story.
Mm-hmm.
With Tom King, I understand, very very polarizing. This was it was always supposed to be from issue 14 or a
Yeah.
little bit before that. It was supposed to be a story about Batman and Catwoman.
Yeah.
I think it very much got mangled in like right before 50 and then changed into an amalgamation of all sorts of shit because Tom King was still wanting to do the stuff that he wanted to do while also getting notes by editors as well as getting notes by Dan Didio and Jim Lee themselves.
Yeah.
Like he had a lot of pressure. And of course, it's the Batman title. It's the number one title at DC.
Yeah.
Regardless of sales, Batman is supposed to be the number one title. It's a lot of pressure. I think that the what not the characteristics of the character, but the I'm trying to think of like a more sophisticated way of saying it, but just like getting to the bare bones of Bruce Wayne, of
Mhm.
Batman. Like we talked a little bit about religion right after the
Yeah.
wedding issue and all of that. We got into some deep shit with Tom King's Batman, which I really do appreciate.
Mhm.
And I think that's why I like it more. It's
Yeah.
not about necessarily his love life or him being happy, but more so
He
learning more.
explored the Batman character more than anybody else in another series,
Yes,
I think.
and more so of the like the real questions that
Yeah.
people
What
have
makes him
about.
tick?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the random questions that you have about characters. Oh, we just had the conversation on the Discord. Is Clark Kent's parents conservative? You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of thinking of those kind of random questions. I think Tom King was able to give you some of those quote unquote real questions
Yeah.
for Batman's life. And
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think if you were to go back and look, Tom King has more polarizing things throughout his run. Like that thing, when we talked about religion in Tom King's run, that was like a big thing. Though, Batman's atheist. I'm like, you didn't read the fucking story,
Yeah.
but okay, and like that was a big thing, right? The way the wedding happened and unfolded was a big thing. There was like a lot of things. Now, granted, I think a lot of people probably jumped off after the wedding because it didn't happen, and they felt like, oh, you're only doing that to sell comics when Tom King said this is usually the end point. Now, you can take that with a grain of salt if you want, because I don't know if or he even can speak about if there was like, oh, yeah, they made me try to change it or they made me try to do that, right? Like, I don't know how that works. I don't know if there's NDAs to be able to talk about that kind of shit. Or maybe this was always the end goal. He's like, no, this was how it was always supposed to go.
He'll be able
Um,
to talk about it in the next like 15 to 20 years.
Yeah. Or if anybody hangs out with him at a con, I'm pretty sure he'll be able to let you know in person. Because at that point, how do you prove it? Like, oh no, I didn't say that. But anyways, so yeah, the funny thing is though, to go back to what you mentioned with the last invention though. Yeah, people definitely do think about that when it comes to just looking back at the issues. But would you say or what Scott Snyder did was that bigger than the Tower of Babel? I wouldn't say so.
Ooh.
Because the Tower of the Babel, I think, is more polarizing and more interesting. Because I would say
I
that
think
is when you
that's
started
I
seeing the prep time for Batman,
I think Tower of Babel is referenced more so than
for sure,
Snyder's run.
for sure. I
Because
I
there's
would
the
agree with
there's
that.
the offhand comments of like Batman knows how to take down all of us,
Yeah. What Scott
from not
Snyder did
only
was,
his family but his other
yeah.
Justice League members.
But what Scott Snyder did was show you how he did it, which was
Yeah,
awesome. Like
yeah,
that issue is fucking great. I
yeah.
love that issue when he fights the Justice League. And so yes, I think he just furthered what other people did, right? But yeah, if you were to and I get finally say that I'm going to be able to complete my collection of the deluxe editions of Batman because it's finally coming out. Issue 6 is or volume 6 is coming out, and I'll be able to finally read all of Batman, Tom King's run in one sitting if I wanted to, because I'll have them all physically. Now, this is one of the weirdest things that I saw, and I'd have to go back and look at this. But the new deluxe edition has issues 70, 71, skips 72, and then it has 70 through the last ones. I don't know why they skipped 72. That was kind of weird on why you wouldn't include one issue. You know what I mean?
So Batman 72,
I feel like it was also part of the story, so I don't understand why it wouldn't be there.
yeah, it was because uh this
It
was
was like,
back into it was the fight between uh Bane and Batman at the very end.
yeah, so I don't understand why that wouldn't be in there. Unless it was just a typo on Amazon, but that seems kind of weird. I feel like they just copy and paste that from DC.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's going to be really weird if they don't include that. Because it does have some, and I know there's like, the volume is going to have some extra things. It's probably going to have like the story with, you know, the kryptonite and shit in there probably and all that jazz. But I forget what they're going to be including. I know one of the annuals is being included. But and that's other stuff about Tom King's run. In I mean, I guess you could just talk. We kind of already did talk about the whole run overall, but like some of the side stuff that King did too, man. Like we saw the wedding invitation with Joker. I thought that was a great story. I really love that one shot where he did the day to day of Batman's life. Like that was so good
Yeah.
because that was a good explanation on how people should see comics. You know what I mean? Like stop getting hung up on the idea of like, oh, well, in, Batman 60, 642, he actually says the year is 19 whatever. It's like you can't read comics like that anymore. Like
No.
dates and stuff are irrelevant. Like if you ever see dates in comics, that's not continuity anymore because we've progressed in years. Like there's no way you can do that. You just got to assume all of these adventures are happening in like a 10-year span.
Yeah.
Unless they're saying it's a future story, it's all happening in like a 10-year span, and that's what I really loved about that. And again, is why I say Tom King tried, or I should say dared to be different, right? Because we saw with Tynan, what did Tynan try to do differently? He played all the same fucking cards. Let's bring in Joker, let's do this, let's do that. I hope Zdarsky's different. We will see. He's starting off like he says that this first arc is with this failsafe character or whatever the hell he's calling it. That's the Doomsday. And yeah, we'll see. But I hope he's different. But let's just make this bet right now, since we can say King's run's officially done. It's over. I guess. Do you think Zdarsky will have a Joker arc? We know Joker from his trailer is in his story somewhere. Is that going to be an arc? We don't know. We'll find out. But do you think he's going to have a full blown Joker arc, or will we finally get a writer that doesn't try to touch the Joker?
I think there will be, but a it'll be a Joker arc where Batman and Joker are working together.
Ugh. You think he would try to talk DC into letting him somehow try to kill the Joker so he can pay off his stupid urban legends thing?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
hope
think
not.
so. Or if anything, it'll be like a mistake or something that happens that Joker gets killed and
Yeah,
then he can pay it off that way. But Batman will not kill
yeah.
Joker.
I
But
wouldn't be
I do
surprised
think
if they do the
if
Scarecrow thing.
if they do have like the Doomsday of Batman
Mm-hmm.
and there's no way to defeat him, he's going to
Yeah,
go to the one person who almost nearly beat him before,
yeah.
Joker.
Literally, when you said that, Scott Snyder's already done that. And I don't think you can surpass a Joker Batman. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, at the end of Metal, they
Yeah,
fought together.
I don't think you can surpass that. Like, and he's already fought, like, who's. I think the only way you would be better than a Batman or a Joker is if it's like a computer program, right? Like a Brother Eye or a fucking Oracle or something, right? Like, there's no other
I
way that you would surpass those two.
I think that because unless you get somebody like Lex Luthor, who is like the second
Yeah.
smartest person in the world compared to Batman or whatever.
Wait, Scott Snyder killed that too, though. Because Joker fucking destroyed him.
Yeah, true.
So,
But yeah, I do think that it'll be I don't know, man. Like again, with the Dark Crisis, who knows if like we get
yeah,
another
that's
Batman
true.
variant or whatever, like
Yeah.
dealing with multiverse stuff. I don't know. But I I want to go in with high hopes
Hmm.
with Zdarsky because of how well he's been writing everywhere else and
Yeah.
his indie stuff at Marvel. Like I understand there's a lot of pressure with Batman.
Yeah.
It's the number one book. Like we always make the comment, the two books that everybody wants to write when it comes to comics is Spider-Man and Batman.
Yeah.
And getting the Batman title means a lot. And some people are just not able to handle the pressure. Let's see if Zdarsky is able to. Hopefully he is.
Mhm.
But I mean, we get that issue next week.
Yeah. Yeah, is it next week already?
Yeah.
Oh yes, 1st of July, first week of July. So you will be able to hear us talk about Batman 125 next week, and we'll see what the future of Batman has to say. I'm really excited to read Detective Comics, though. That's the only thing I think I'm looking forward to next. Wait, is next week also Killing Time?
I believe so.
Oh, I'm really excited about Killing Time. So I'm really excited. So we'll be able to talk about that next week. But Clay,
Let
let everybody
me
know what you got going on.
I'm actually gonna double check.
I
So
think they come
next
out on the same week because I think I made a comment about I'm going to be really happy
Yes,
and
Killing
yeah,
Killing Time 5, and we
yeah.
also get Batman Beyond next. So I was
Oh,
looking
okay.
at it in the middle of the podcast. We have
hmm
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 books next week.
Jesus. Okay, so there'll be a jam-packed review episode next week. So yeah, hopefully we don't have a lot of news to go around, but this is already a jam-packed episode as this is. But all right, Clay, let us know what you got going on for the week, man.
Yeah, so if you guys haven't started following me at the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network or any of my other shows that I'm a host of, DC Alliance, Ranger Alliance, Star Wars Alliance, go check those out. Specifically, Star Wars Alliance, we did an interview with a writer named Adam Christopher. He wrote a Star Wars novel called The Shadow of Sith. Came out 2 days ago. We had the opportunity to read it early. It was a very, very fun interview. We just, just generic kind of Q&A stuff. Really, really fun. Go check that out on DC Alliance this upcoming week. On Tuesday is when the podcast will drop, but you can always join us on the Geekverse YouTube channel to watch us live on Monday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to be talking about the finale of Superman and Lois season 2, and then we're going to be talking about all the stuff that we talked about today, but there were non-Batman rumors that I kind of spared because this is only a Batman podcast. So we're going to be talking more into that. And then, yeah, so go check everything out at Geek Ultimate Alliance.
Noise, noise. You guys can follow me on my TikTok or on my YouTube for extra content. I'm still covering the Ezra Miller stuff every time that drops. So wild.
So
Um,
it's funny that you say that because at the very near the end of this podcast,
uh-huh,
the where it all happened or it all started, it
uh-huh,
has come full circle. The choking woman
uh-huh.
has started to make comments publicly now.
Oh, wow. I gotta read that. I might have a video today then.
So it's
Although I'm
from
still working
Variety.
on.
I'm actually going to be
If you can link it to me, that'd be
yeah, I'll
great.
send it to you right now.
Anyways, so yeah, you guys come check out my channel. I might have a new Ezra Miller video dropping probably sometime after this podcast drops. But yeah, go check those out. But that's gonna be it, ladies and gentlemen. As always, he is Fanboy Clay. I am Juice Wayne, and remember, Batman is awesome. News Weekly.